Hello and welcome back to episode 3. My name's Pete and I'm here with, well, let's just be honest, a bunch of odd people. And we're here to entertain you for the next coming hours.
Hours, plural. To be fair, we got a big episode coming up. So
it's my bedtime at 10 o'clock, so we need this wrapped up in like half an hour.
It's past my bedtime. So, what we got planned for this episode? What topics? What big things? News of the day?
Well, you know, big news of the day. There's tournaments we're going to coming up. There's Imps Open. We like a bit of that. More details on that to come. And we got asked rather nicely if we go through a Armies of Germany review. So here we go.
Schnell! Yes, we're going to be talking all things Armies of Germany. So we're going to be covering the book and giving the lowdown, the Juggernauts guide. And this is what our opinions are, which will all be wrong. And feel free to tell us how wrong we are. And yeah, so that's what we've got planned. I'm thinking that the Armies of Germany is going to be such a big that we're probably not going to have fit much else in. But it should be an interesting episode nonetheless.
We will fit the all-important Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby at the end, though.
Yes, for one of us has been punished. Sheffield has not met his pledge, which is why he's not here yet. He's currently in the dungeon. We will let him out once he finishes his models and honours his commitment.
He's currently having nipple clamps applied.
To be fair, we were very mean to him last episode. So let's be a little bit nicer and at least give him lube for 7 nipple clamps. You know, at least be tender and loving to him this episode, because he might be a bit emotionally delicate. And I don't know on that. We have enough on our heads as being, you know, the devils of bolt action. Let's not be the devils of Sheffield's psychology as well.
Yeah.
So that's fine.
Well,
Also, Happy New Year.
Yeah.
You know, all the good podcasts out there did like specials and all that, and we did fuck all of that. So Happy New Year. Hope you all got pissed. Hope you got what you wanted. I did. It was great.
I got a pair of socks. I mean, that's useful, right?
Are they bolt action related socks?
No.
Then what are you talking about in a bolt action podcast for then?
I'd never get given models.
I've ordered a tank. That's what I got. I got money and then ordered a tank. It's not great news.
I got most of a American paratrooper list that is currently being built for a tournament we're coming up for in a couple of months' time, which is pretty filthy, so that's all good.
So you know how I'm currently the devil of bolt action and I'm the most hated man in the world in a bolt action sense?
Yes,
you
are.
I was going to say...
Second place level.
Okay, Dan, do you want to just tell us what you've ordered and then I can just sit back and not be the most hated man for once?
Yeah, so it's currently being built for a 750-point tournament, which is a single platoon market garden with double light mortars, double medium howitzers, and a free air observer. And it's going to be probably my list for the GT next year, which is going to be double market garden, 4 light mortars, 4 medium howitzers, free air observer, and a shit ton of paratroopers.
So just to clarify, you've taken the most horrendously dirty theatre selector of those ones out of the market garden, taken the most filthy units, which is the howitzers, and then doubled them up to the point where you have 4 of them.
Yeah.
And how many dice is that?
It's only like 17 or 18 because all the light
Only 17.
You disgust me.
The quirk is that a paratrooper army is basically all veteran infantry, but the howitzers can be regular because you wouldn't want to take them inexperienced, but your light mortars can be inexperienced. So you can buy 28-point dice with a light mortar with 2 men, which also count as a small team, to put in that list. So I can go from 12 dice to 16 or 17 dice for about 110 points. So why wouldn't you do it?
While I do not like that list, the irony, I will defend your right to do it to the death. So there you go. You can be the evil man this year. I've had my year. I'm going to be lovely, Topher. Everyone's going to love me this year. They can hate you. It'll be fine.
Yeah, I don't mind tagging out.
And everyone knows what Dan's taking to the GT now.
You can prepare. Also, no matter what, come at the end of the GT, everyone will be like, you know, Toph, that dickhead who took 4 medium howitzers, and they still won't blame Dan. It'll be me. So,
not Toph, how dare you?
For all things should be attributed to me.
Dan just needs a T-shirt that says "I'm Toph." We should just all wear "I'm Toph" T-shirts.
Yeah. And then Topher should get one just saying, "I'm Batman."
He's Batman.
Oh, Batman. Sorry.
Oh, I'm not no bad man. Right. Once we get a merch store set up, that's how serious I'm going to take this shit. I will have one of the purchasable options will be an I Am Toph t-shirt.
Yeah.
Hopefully, like the film poster for I Am Legend with Will Smith. Can we do that but with I Am Toph and then just a really picture of me looking fat instead of Will Smith? Yeah.
On there, couldn't we?
Yeah.
Could it be
We can do
Colville
a
in the
recreation.
background rather than New York?
Like Toph, Colville in the background, his cat by the side of him, sorted.
I ain't gonna kill my pussy. You leave my pussy out of this.
All right. Can I just say we're only like 15 minutes into the recording, we've already sidetracked from the intro.
Okay, right. That's the intro. Let's go on to like the next.
Hello, everyone.
Yes, Sheffield has been allowed out of his cave. Have you finished your tanks yet?
Yes.
Have you? Oh, you're officially out of the cage then. Anyway, on to the first segment.
Yep.
Okay, so first segment of the day is an interview. It's our first interview, guys. First
Woohoo!
interview. Except
Yay.
our interview, he has dropped out.
So it's not our first interview.
I mean, we're going to have the interview without him.
All right.
And then
This will be good.
we're just going to have to roll with it. He's given us some information. So we was going to have an interview with the infamous Gaz Walsh of Bolt Action fame in the UK scene, as he's running a tournament. So we was going to talk to him all about it and see what makes his mind tick and see how he's going to do it. And then he has like family issues. So it's just going to be us talking about his event and giving him a mild plug. It'll be a mild plug. It won't be a deep plug. Not anymore. Because he won't be here, so it'll be the most mild, little sweet scent of a plug.
So we'll just have to insert silence where he would reply, right?
Yeah,
You
basically.
ask question, silence.
Yeah.
Make up your own answers at home.
Okay. Is it interview bingo? We'll work out some things you'd probably say, and then scratch them off when we say them, and then we're good to go.
You said, well, we asked, what's the location? You said, Sheffield's Rectum.
No, we're being nice to Sheffield this time, okay?
Oh, sorry.
We're being
sorry.
nice to... Right,
I just
anyway,
thought I'd get one
enough
more in.
sidetracking. So, it is the Imps Open, which is based at Imps Gaming in Lincoln, in the UK, in the Midlands, on Saturday the 20th of April. It is 4 games in one day, 750 points. That's a little bit different to normal, actually, because normal games are 1,000 to 1,250. Gaz is doing them at 750, which immediately is throwing me off. I can't do a list at 750. How can I fit my usual cheese in? What's going on? You have to tone stuff down. You have to like swap stuff up. It's going to be quite interesting. See, I think it's an hour and a half games, as it's 750 rather than 1,000. And I think the guidelines he's given for tone of the event is competitive tournament. # don't be a dick.
He will vet lists, just so everyone knows. If he thinks you're
That's
listening
only because
to
it's
bad,
allowed special characters.
some, yeah.
So he's basically given everyone make whatever list you want. However, he will be vetting every single one, and if anything is particularly abusive or particularly awful, he will be sending it back. So even things like special characters, he's actually allowing. However, he said, "Ask me first," because things like Vasily or the White Death will probably be sent back because they're a little bit over the top. So definitely.
I've already had one sent back.
Have you already? Which one was that?
Tadamichi Kurobayashi.
And that is.
The Japanese general character that is no points.
See, there we go. A character that costs 0 points. Gaz said, "Fuck you, go away." So he's definitely on top of it.
He does take away Banzai charge, but he's no points.
Yeah.
He's letting me take mine.
Which one's yours?
So it's an armoured platoon, 3 vehicles, Wittmann's Veteran Tiger, and 2 inexperienced Panzer ones.
Are you actually taking that?
No, I'm just messing with it.
I feel like we need to force you on that to take that list now. You've suggested
To be
it.
honest, it's only 3 vehicles. That's
But
what
when
you
he
can
makes
take
his next pledge, we can make him take it.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. So anyway, it's 750 points. As I say, it is a court tournament. It is a tournament people should be expected to go and play to win. However, abusive lists of the like, say, double Stalingrad with 23 dice would definitely be told to go away, please. So in which case, although we'll all be going to win, as you should do at a tournament, it's definitely you shouldn't be going to get absolutely abused, let's say. So each table's going to have a different scenario. The table's terrain will be set up for said scenario, and he's told us in advance that each table is going to have some weather rules on it. So if you've looked in any of like the theatre selector books, you know, something like the ice or the heavy rain or the desert, those rules will play into effect.
I should take my fins really on ski, shouldn't I?
It's very
Play on a
terrifying.
desert board.
I just have this awful thought of me turning up with my army and then they all die of heat exhaustion before the game even begins.
Yeah.
More important stuff anyway. Food is included with your ticket, and there's lots of free parking, and there's enough prizes for one for everybody. So even if you turn up and get absolutely pasted in every single game, you could still walk away with something decent, as a good tournament should do.
Remind us again when it is.
20th of April. £20 per ticket, and you can buy them
And it's
from
a one-dayer, isn't it?
yeah, Imps Gaming. If you Google them, Imps Gaming, the tickets on their website.
And it's the third time this has been run. I mean, in slightly different guys before, but we were at the other two and they were really good.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
Gaz is my favourite TO.
Oh,
He is my favourite TO to work on. Just for the
And part-time boyfriend.
and part-time boyfriend. The amount of handies he gave me to plug this is phenomenal. I have to say, they're some of the best in the
Still
business.
now.
It's why he couldn't actually make this interview. He was so sore after the last go. He just had to take some time off. But yes, Imps Open. Please come say hi. It's one of my favourite tournaments, if nothing else, based on the last ones, and I can't wait. So there
And
you
if
go.
you do come to the tournament, come and say hi to the Juggernauts as well, and introduce yourselves, and let us know what you think of the podcast.
That's
And if you don't like our filth, let us know.
That's a good point. I totally forgot about that. So what we've done, right? This is secret now between you guys, the listeners, and us, the hosts, is that we've ordered some widgets. So you know those little like plastic measuring devices with 1 inch, 2 inch, and 3 inches on them. The things you can use to work out coherence. It's really useful, really brilliant. We've got some with Juggernaut with like logos on them and names. So if you come up to one of us and say the special secret uber super secret code word, we'll give you one for free.
It's going to be a Sheffield insult, isn't it?
No. I was thinking the Juggernaut
Our slogan.
our slogan, yeah.
Get petty.
Get petty. for when you're losing, and rather than getting upset and flipping the table, just get petty and just start killing
Tag
their
past
favourite
the
models.
salt.
Past
Or
the
what we could do, you know, like in old spy films when they would walk up and give a secret phrase and answer,
yeah.
they could walk up and say, "What's your favourite type of cheese?" "Russian dice spam."
Nice.
I'm thinking get petty. I like get petty.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Get petty. Come up to one of us. We'll be wearing our t-shirts. We'll have our names on the back. I'm the really fat, ugly one. You'll spot me a mile away. The other guys aren't too great either. It's fine. Come up and just say,
I'll be carrying around my GT first place.
yeah.
The good-looking one will be Dan, as always.
Come up, say get petty. We'll give you some freebies, and then we'll
Yeah.
know that you've really listened. That you're not just a guy off on the internet. You've really listened to what we have to say, and then we'll chat shit with you. So
Yeah, I'm most likely the one scratching my belly during a game.
yeah, hopefully we'll get those that turned up at Cambridge as well. So if you see us at Cambridge, come up to us and say get petty, and we'll give you one as well for free widgets for everyone. Sound good?
Yeah.
Cool. Right, on to the next section then. Guys, what the fact? What the fact?
What?
What the fact?
Back!
What the feedback and questions?
Oh, you've changed it.
Have I? What did I say last time?
Frequently asked
What the frequently asked questions? I'm not even good at this. Like you need to
No.
go. You need to get a better host, obviously.
It's just not as catchy as Blobby Hobby Lobby.
Don't you even start. You pipe down, sir. So we've had you know what? I think we've had, what would you say, guys? I think we've had a nicer month of feedback than the previous two. I think the people who hate us have decided that we're not worth it.
Well, they've probably listened and then just gone off somewhere else and crawled under another rock.
That's
No.
so.
I wouldn't say that.
No, they've changed their
I'll
minds.
say-
They're one of us now.
I
Yeah.
sincerely doubt that.
I doubt that quite a lot.
I wouldn't want that. No, I don't want so many of us. That'd be a bit gross.
No, we
I
were
think they've just
completely
pushed us into
convincing.
our corner and said, sit in your corner.
Okay. To be fair, and I must say, podcasts aren't just for Christmas. So, unfortunately, we're still here in the new year, and we're going to still be here. Because we've had just enough, my mum's told me just enough that I am worth it, and I am a good boy. So I'm going to keep going. because my mum is about 30% of our listenership right now.
So she says that to Dan.
It's about 30% my mum, 30% Dan's missus, and then it's just everyone else.
Yeah.
Right. So what feedback we got?
We had a question from Nick on our Facebook page.
Yep.
That was asking around what terrain do we use, how much, what types for generic gaming rather than scenario play. So, discounting scenarios, what do we use for our normal generic games?
Bit of selection, really, isn't it?
Yeah, roads, hills.
There used to be a thing for, I mean, people are going to hate me for saying this, but 40k.
Oh, fuck's
There
sake.
There used to be a thing back in the day where if you split the table into 6 2x2 squares, roll a d3, and that's how many pieces of terrain you put in that area. So each bit will have between 1 and 3 per 2-foot square. I think that's not a bad rule to start with, but obviously you kind of want to make it a little bit more balanced in bolt action.
I find bolt action you can go denser than you normally would in another war game. You know, like some war games have a different sense. Like old school fantasy, you'd go quite light. You'd have maybe a hill and a forest. 40k maybe you'd have 1 or 2 buildings per per sixth. I think in bolt action you go quite dense. To be fair, you can afford.
Yeah, I think I would increase it for bolt action just because light cover doesn't really do much, and having a lot of it actually makes the game last longer and a bit more interesting. Yeah,
I agree. I mean, for me, the buildings are they're not necessarily the best thing in bolt action. We talked about this a little bit last time. They tend towards being either death trap or amazing, but they are interesting. And actually, the ability to have quite a lot of them, lots of small little sub buildings, is something that other games don't have. And so we quite often will have like a little urban building complex in one part of the board, and that's often quite good fun to fight around and do stuff. And so it's much easier to make a board look like a town in the corner of it or something like that than just sort of a mishmash of random bits. They tend to look like actual places insofar as you can do that. As I say, we've played quite a lot of other different games. One of the things that I think is unique to bolt action that makes a massive amount of difference is road. In terms of movement, and other games don't have that. So actually having roads in deliberate places makes the whole dynamic of the game change, particularly if you've got lots of wheeled vehicles.
I will say that if you do have roads, make sure you have some roadblocks. Simply because if you have a road going from one side to the other, it can make scenario play really fluky and dodgy, especially if you're playing envelopment. Truck which can drive off the board in a single turn with a road, and it's a little bit weird if you're not prepared for it. So definitely a roadblock or two goes a long way.
Yeah, I mean, one of the first tournaments I went to, I had an American list that was quite generic with a lot of small teams, like, a sniper, a mortar, a flamethrower, a bazooka and everything. And I had them in all of those little teams in 2 trucks, and the mission was double envelopment. So I just drove them both off the board first turn and got like 21 points in turn 1. So you need to be able to stop that sort of shenanigans.
Turns bicycle infantry into gods.
Yeah.
Bicycles only work on roads. They're not worth it.
I think as a closing point, I think it's a flexible game. You can have lots of different styles. You can go very heavy like Stalingrad. You can go very light like a Alamein or like North Africa. What I would say is if you're just starting out and you're not entirely sure what to do with your with your board, like a little hamlet, 2 or 3 buildings, a couple of fields with some walls around them and a couple of forests and maybe like a crossroads, and that's about it. And then you can go from there. I think that's a good starting point. 2 or 3 buildings, 2 or 3 like dense terrain woods, and a bit smattering of like light cover, heavy cover walls, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I agree. Solid advice.
I think the best way is if you're starting out as well, play smaller games first. If you're playing on a 4x4 with say 500 or 750 points, you get a better idea of how much more terrain you'll need for a 6-foot board. Yeah,
and I think obviously each kind of, you'll learn what you prefer. Some people prefer denser boards, some people prefer lighter boards. Like to play on maybe different than what the guy down the road plays on, which is totally fine as well. You got to work what's best for you and your team. Like we in the garage, we play quite dense boards, to be fair. We have a fair bit of line side blocking terrain, so you can't just sit there, line up and gun everyone down from 4 foot away. But yeah, if you start mediocre, start with like a hamlet and just go from there, and just see. But that's what I would it be worth? What I could do is if I set up like a generic board in the garage and take a picture and upload it to the Facebook page, I can say here's what we would recommend as an average board. Is that useful?
We can set up a couple if you want.
Yeah,
well, we can set up a not enough, pretty much about right, and far too much. We can set up those 3 boards.
Do you want to play me on the not enough against my howitzers? Is that cool?
Only if I can bring my 4 howitzers.
Damn it!
I'll play it if I can have the train.
I'll
Fair
play
enough.
it if we can play at night.
Always with the night fighting, Pete.
What?
Right.
He just meant at 8 p.m. He didn't mean with night fight rules.
Ah, okay.
Oh.
Fair enough. Right, we've done that one. Hope that answers your question, Nick. Next question.
Yeah, so we got a bit of a shout out from JL from the Bacon Burgers podcast.
Bacon burgers.
Yes, so the Bacon Burgers are a bolt action and a little bit of a more generic gaming group from Australia.
Oh, mate. Mate.
Mate.
Mate.
Oh, here comes the bad accent. Oh.
They
Oh,
gave
wasn't
us a
even
shout
trying.
out. Yeah, they gave us a shout out for being very entertaining. But they questioned the scenario, the scenes over here in the UK and over in Australia, because obviously Australia, massive country, population spread out across a very large area, can't really get to game a lot. They don't have as many tournaments, and when they do have events, they tend to be more campaign days, whereas in the UK we've got a lot more tournaments. And it's quite an interesting listen for the whole podcast in general, but specifically the last maybe half an hour where they discuss this and just the attitudes towards the scenes at each location. So here in the UK and over in the US, over in Australia. So I thought that was a good podcast to listen to.
Yeah, we agreed.
Yes,
We all listened to it
very
and thought
good
it was really good.
I thought it's very interesting in that people in their game, people are a product of their environment. So if we all lived in Australia, I do not think that we'd be sitting here now talking about a competitive bolt action podcast, simply because when you only have one tournament, every 6 months you can get to because you've got to fly 1 billion miles, and at most there's only 10 people because they all have to fly 1 billion miles. Suddenly it's not quite the same as us guys over here who can have 5 games a week and turn up to a tournament every other week. It's completely different. So I do think it's a good point to say, people should play towards their own scene, if that makes sense.
One of the hosts did mention, didn't he, that I think he said something like because of work commitments and people living far away in terms of his gaming group living quite far away from each other, he's only played probably 15 or 20 games in a whole year. I mean, we play 15 or 20 games in the course of about 2 months. That's how different it is for us over here in the UK and those guys in the Australia.
I also think if we got, because obviously the Juggernauts as a group is larger than just the members of this podcast. We're a wider club, and quite often we'll send teams the size of double figures to certain tournaments. I think if we sent all of our dudes all together to a Australian tournament at once, we'd half the guys there would be Juggernauts. So it's just completely different. And you know what? If I was in Australia, just a normal gamer, and every tournament I went to, half of the guys were sat there in their one colour with a bloody stupid rhino on their t-shirts going brah, 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 brah. You know what? Yeah, there'd be a bunch of dicks as well. Because at a tournament here, we'd mostly be 10% at most.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just thought Bacon Burger's a really good cast. I really like listening to him. So I was actually quite surprised when I suddenly heard them talking about us. I was like, celebrity.
Yeah.
He was calling out your nonsense.
Rightly so.
So the hatred is transcontinental now.
So I reckon if you put 2 fingers up to the floor, you're offending someone in Australia if you draw a direct line through the planet.
They're nice guys.
No, they are nice guys.
I promise, if I ever win the lottery, and if I do win the lottery, I'd absolutely love to put my army in a box and travel the world and play everyone at bolt action. I wouldn't come and just ruin your day. I would play at the level you would want to play, if that makes sense. I would not come around and be that guy. I promise. Please let me into your country.
See, what I heard there was Topher is paying for us to go to Australia, lads.
Yeah, excellent.
I can barely afford my 15 Big Macs a day currently. So,
While you're over there, can you work out what the secret is that lets all their models not fall off the table on the other side of the planet?
Oh dear.
Right, next bit of feedback before we insult anyone else, mate.
We had some good feedback from Grimes, one of our fellow Juggernauts, and he was just saying it was really funny, but we probably overdid it on the blue jokes, particularly jokes aimed at me. So I'd like to say I appreciate that feedback, Grimes. I agree. I did feel particularly.
I don't. I feel that the feedback is entirely misplaced.
I reckon we could have had another fist at it.
No, he's had his week. It's fine. Thank you for your feedback, Grimes. Okay. Ken said, he said a lot of stuff. This is kind of another summarise because you know what, you guys give me so much feedback. I can't truncate. I can't speak enough. Anyway, he did say, "What's your opinion on dice caps?" And I think this is a question which we could have an hour discussion about. So let's just summarise it. What's your opinion on dice caps? And what is a dice cap?
I think the ice caps are melting, and we should be really concerned about the effects of global warming.
Dice. Die caps.
So dice caps like limiting armies to about, say 16 dice or 18 dice. All it does is shift what's going to be more effective at that tournament. And a lot of the time, all it does is promote people making everything veteran. It depends on the cap, I'll be honest. I think Cambridge is running a 20 dice cap this year, which seems a little bit more in line with what they want to do, and that's fine.
Yeah, I have a similar opinion. Dice caps are good when they're done, when a bit of thought have been put into them, but I think when people just throw them about, they don't tend to do what people want them to do. People put a dice cap in to stop the silly 23 dice list turning up and, to actually bring it down to a more reasonable level, which is totally fair enough. I think when people try and instigate a 12 dice cap, though, at 1,000 points, it's not really going to work because every list becomes the same. It's, suddenly a lot harder to fill your list out with 12 units or less, and suddenly every single list becomes the same, which is, here's my tank, here's my veteran teams, and here's my 3 or 4 squads of veteran infantry. And it becomes really dull really fast. I think 20 is reasonable. 18 still probably a bit reasonable. Any less than that though, and I really think you're starting to hamper what sort of list you'll see.
Especially
I agree.
from the stuff that gets multiple things per slot. Soviets, Japanese, some of the weirder armies like that get multiples per slot tend to veteran up a whole lot quicker when there's a dice cap.
Just copy and paste what you guys have said. Really, I think dice caps, when they're done well, yeah, fine. If they're aimed too low, it just makes everything really identical and bland. So there's no point to it, really.
I think a final point is if you're a TO and you're about to put a dice cap on your tournament, really think about what you're trying to achieve. Because if you're just trying to go, let's stop the cheese, that dice cap will not stop what you think it will stop.
Yeah.
All it will do.
Betting lists will do the job better than implementing a dice cap. Because good players will find a way around a dice cap to get the cheese in anyway.
Yeah,
So,
speaking for all 4 of us as the Quattro Formaggio, the 4 cheeses, we are gonna break a dice cap. You can do a cheesy list with 8 dice, no problem.
Yeah.
Cool. I hope that answers your question, Ken. I'd say that's a really big topic. You could go for hours on that. But for now, that should hopefully keep it happy. Anything else?
Yeah, so we've got another message on Facebook from a guy called Dave. Sent a couple of emails through and put a post on the page as well for everyone to see, saying that he loves the cast and the way that we embrace the filth. I think he's a tournament gamer or a competitive gamer more than anything else and likes the challenge. And he was just saying, make sure we don't go bland and, wuss out a little bit. So, Dave, don't worry, mate. We've got your back. If we ever meet you at a tournament, we'll smash your face.
Yeah, don't worry, man.
On the table. On the table.
See, when he says bland, is he saying that we suddenly stop being competitive, or we suddenly stop insulting Sheffield? Which bland are we talking?
No, he's clearly saying don't invite Luke back.
Oh,
I think he meant, don't go for generic lists because people are whinging that you're the devil of bolt action, or I've taken Finns to the GT because Finnish are apparently the best in the world and that sort of stuff. So, if you're going to play, you play to win at these tournaments. So carry on.
I'll just say that we started this podcast simply because we just like talking. It's more for us than anyone else. It is really for me and, my mum. So if no one else wanted to listen, it's fair enough. And if people want to listen, that's also cool. But, we like what we do. So we're going to keep doing it.
Absolutely.
Cool. And then we got a really big email from another guy called Daniel. They're actually emailing us, by the way, juggernautwargaming@gmail.com. If you want to send me some more spam. I'll tell you what, guys, all those people who've been recommending me for penis enlargements, you have some taste. Can I just say? Good times.
Now, hold on a second. Hold on a second. You said that a third of our listenership was your mum.
There's a reason the widgets only measure up to 3 inches.
Oh.
I don't even have a comeback to that. That's really good. Thank you. That's a great insult. Right. Anyway. So Daniel said, "Hi Topher, listen to your second cast. I honestly enjoyed it. Also, at one point, I felt sorry for all the butt jokes." I think you've got a lot of fans, Sheffield.
Well, thank you.
I mean, not amongst us. We all hate you, but you know.
They're not fans. They're just sympathetic to him. That's all.
Got the pity vote.
Yeah.
If you add, so following on, this is like a second or third email in the chain. I'm not reading the whole chain out, but he basically said it'd be interesting to for us to talk about specific armies. And then naturally, I just went, well, what army are you on about? And Daniel replied, if you asked me about nations to cover from a competitive point of view, I'd wonder how you guys would structure a German list. I play myself German and tend to use the Nebelwerfer than any kind of Tiger Fear. Also, light machine guns versus assault rifles, when to stack your units with what. Which unit composition would benefit more from static LMG play versus aggressive assault rifle play? I hope I make sense here. And he also put one more point. I saw some comments on Facebook about the last episode and some complaints about competitive gamers. I wanted to say I enjoyed the podcast and liked the more competitive aspect. So I've got 2 points. I've got 3 points here even. 1, Daniel, I'm glad you liked the cast. 2, you're not a babe for actually emailing in. And 3, I think German list is a very good place to start in terms of let's do the Juggernauts guide to playing a specific nation.
Well, when you think World War II, you think Germans, Nazis. So it's kind of everyone's jumping in point, isn't it? Really, to think British versus Germans. Let's go for one of those two. And
I mean, if you don't play Germans, your opponent does.
Yeah,
you know, everyone's got that army.
Out of the 4 of us on this cast, who doesn't have Germans? None of us.
No, we do all have a German army. Yeah, so I think half of us all started with Germans as well, and the other half of them, it was like their second army. So
yeah,
I think we're pretty.
My German
army
is
the
beautiful.
Ultramarines of Bolt Action.
Pete, you brought your German army.
Yeah, I know. Bought it. It's great.
Off some legends.
That's why I said it looked great.
So next segment, let's do the Juggernauts Guide to the Armies of Germany.
Okay, so what we're going to look at now is some of the different units and options and things that exist in the Armies of Germany book. It's the only one to have its own book updated for 2nd edition, and it's pretty chunky. It's a consolidation of loads of stuff from V1, and it's one of our favourite bits of source book because it's just got so much flexibility and variety in it. So we're going to go through it, have a look at some of the different units, tell you what we think about them, whether we think they're good, bad, what sort of situations we'd use them in, and maybe signpost you to some of the other units that you find interspersed around the other source material. But primarily today we're just going to look at the Armies of Germany version 2.
I think it's one of there's the most options, isn't there, of any other army. Like you can build whatever you want. There will be a theatre book somewhere. Yeah, there'll be a theatre book somewhere with a unit somewhere, and I think we're definitely going to miss bits. So if we've missed your favourite unit or your favourite selector, I'm really sorry. But either we've missed it because we're idiots, or we just don't care about it, or we just don't think it's worth talking about. One of the two. Most likely, though, we've just missed it because we're idiots.
These are things that we find useful and we think are worth noting, aren't they?
Yeah.
All things that we find are utter garbage and you probably shouldn't take them.
Yes, but before we get into the units specifically, we need to talk about the national rules. And I'll just do as a brief introduction to it. There are 4 national rules unique to Germany. They are Hitler's buzzsaw, which allows LMGs and MMGs to fire an additional shot. You have better officers. I think the rule's called initiative training. And basically, if it means that your snap 2 action for
That's
your...
Blitzkrieg.
Is that Blitzkrieg?
Yeah.
Well, that's one. It says better. That's why it says better officers in the notes. It's because it's combining both of them, isn't it? So yes, basically your officers can snap 2, 1 more dice than their rank would allow. That's the first bit. And then if your NCOs from your squads die on a 2-up, somebody else takes over and becomes the NCO. So yes, your officers, be it non-commissioned or otherwise, are better as Germans. Then the third one is that you have Tiger Fear. So certain vehicles give you a bonus rule that makes you have to take a whole bunch of tests. It's a real pain in the ass, but it's pretty useful if you're a German player. And then it's not really a national special rule, but everyone sort of thinks it is, which is that as Germany, you get access to loads of assault rifles. So let's start with Hitler's buzzsaw and go to Pete. What do you think about that?
Well, makes LMGs actually me want to take them. I don't normally play with LMGs. I think they're slightly overpriced what they do. But when you look at the German ones, then gimme.
I'm famous for utterly hating LMGs. I think they're far too expensive for what they do. The fact that 40 points for 2 men with an LMG in a squad is quite ridiculous, really. When for 40 points you could literally have 4 dudes who would just do the exact same thing but better. And I think that the LMG, the Hitler's Buzzsaw, giving you extra shots, particularly on then deciding whether you should take LMGs or not, it's a honey trap. I just do not believe even Germans it is worth taking LMGs. Unfortunately, I just think they're too expensive. They're just not flexible enough. I mean, don't even get me started on MMGs. That 6th shot does not make an MMG good.
I feel
it does make German vehicles bloody terrifying with MMGs.
That's exactly what I was going to say, is that I agree completely with Topher on this. I think that they're a honey trap. I think that they're a mistake, mainly. The exception is on light vehicles and armoured cars. It's like your 7 and 8 plus cheap stuff that has multiple MMGs. Suddenly, 2 6-shot MMGs on an Armour 7 recce vehicle is actually pretty good for 100 points. You're not going to knock at that. Whereas it's the people who just take them in squads, just max out all their regular infantry squads with tons of LMGs. No, you're wasting your points.
I think the problem is if you take, say, if you have an 8-man squad with an LMG, that's 13 shots. That's 100 points for 13 shots. And alternatively to that, you could just take a 10-man squad, which, okay, it's only got 10 shots, not 13, but it's got those 2 extra bodies. And you know what? I'd prefer those 2 extra bodies every time.
And a reroll.
And a reroll for full strength, yeah. I think you're going to pass order checks more because of the reroll. You got more dudes to take hits with. And I just think the problem is you see this all the time, particularly with people who have just gotten into the game who look at the LMG and go, yeah, there's LMG, everyone has one, and then put one on every single squad. Once you're taking 5 squads, that's an extra 100 points.
Sorry, the machine gun is the quintessential gun when you think of war, isn't it? When you think of the First and Second World War, you think of a gun emplacement with a machine gun, like in the films, going daka, 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 everyone falling over like they've been, like Neymar does when he's been tackled properly.
Doing the Spandau Ballet.
Yeah, exactly, the Spandau Ballet. And they just don't relate like that in the game, so they're just not worth it, really.
So, quick straw poll then. Yes or no, do you rate the Hitler's Buzzsaw rule?
Can we have separate scores for vehicles and infantry?
Yeah, so infantry.
Infantry 1 out of 5, yeah.
1.
Yeah. 1. Vehicles?
4.
I'd say 5 because most vehicles get them incorporated into their cost anyway, and the extra shot just makes them better than every other version, so 5.
Yeah, ditto.
I think just to find it's a decent rule in that if you take LMGs, it makes them better. It's not the rule I'm complaining about. It's the fact that LMGs themselves are pretty bad, and this will be a recurring theme in every army review we do. In that LMGs just do not do what they should do. Now, if I'm just playing a nice casual game, with my mates in the garage, I'll take some LMGs. Sure, it's theme, it's historical. Every squad should have one. But if you're thinking, how can I get the most out of my list? Unfortunately, LMGs is just not the way to go, and I just cannot recommend them.
I think
there is one scenario where LMGs are useful in the German army, and we'll cover this later with Schutzen squads, but that is the only time they're useful.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, so we'll come to it later.
Yeah.
It's a very good choice for a campaign day, though.
Yeah.
I also think it represents Germany quite well. I think it's a good, nice theme. If you was to say what makes German special, I think the Hitler's Buzzsaw is one that would come to most people's minds, even if your knowledge of World War II is pretty light. So I think in terms of theme, it's a great rule. It's really cool. I just wish it was... I don't wish it was better. I just wish the LMG was better to make it better.
Yeah. So I'll be controversial, or I'll put my opinion out there as we segue into the next bit, which is that in the exact reversal of that, where we think that that's really themey, doesn't really have much of an effect. The next one, better officers, the rules that affect your officers. It's the opposite. It's not necessarily that themey. You don't necessarily think of the German army as having better officers than the other armies, but that effect is really quite potent, particularly the Snap 2.
Blitzkrieg.
The Blitzkrieg special rule. That is really useful because it suddenly makes like a second lieutenant really good.
Okay, so to backtrack a bit, each officer is allowed to do a snap 2 action, which is related to the level of your officer. So a second lieutenant can make himself activate and then make another unit nearby. A first lieutenant can do himself and then 2 others. A captain can do himself and 3 others, and so on up to major. The Blitzkrieg rule allows your officer to snap an additional one. So if you was a second lieutenant, you can do himself and 2 buddies. If you was a first lieutenant, you can do himself and 3 buddies, and etc. And I think, following on from Sheffield's point, I do think of German officers as being quite skilled, but not at the bolt action level. I would imagine that more as like the divisional, the battalion level.
Yeah.
You know, when you're playing those big, grander games, you know, that's something for Axis and Allies or Risk, not necessarily for bolt action. Whereas when it's just at this small level, I don't feel it's particularly for me. Not in the same way that Hitler's Buzzsaw is anyway. So in terms of like a rule to actually use to get on the gameplay, it's definitely a very good rule.
The initiative training rule is really, really, really good for keeping your assault rifles alive.
Yeah, so to fulfill on that, every time your NCO dies, he normally would die with any equipment you give him. On a 2 or more, he lives. Well, he doesn't live, but someone else becomes the NCO effectively. But he gets to keep their equipment because obviously they pick up the assault rifle and keep going with it. So in gameplay terms, someone else dies, which means that dude with the assault rifle stays alive forever. So, and normally most squads allow the NCO to take an SMG or an assault rifle, so it's a really good way of keeping your toys going. So even when your squad's down to 2 guys, you've still got half the good stuff.
I think of the two, that is the better rule, the initiative training, just because if you've got 1 officer on the board and say 6 squads, for instance, or sorry, 5 infantry squads, if you've got a chance to save your NCO and keep your higher leadership on 5 separate units rather than just having 1 officer snapping 2 units for a second lieutenant, for example, it's an overall better benefit to the army, I feel.
Yeah, so far as I'm concerned, the only downside, really, is that it makes your major and captain even less appealing than they already are, because they're not necessarily, there's not much use in bolt action for the captain and major, unless you're playing inexperienced Soviet hordes. But actually, in Germany, no, because your first lieutenant is a captain, effectively.
But another thing as well is it also makes your HQ units #1 target for snipers, really.
Yes, true.
I do think there's an awful lot you can do with the Snap 2, especially if you think about it in advance and actually think, right, how am I going to build my list? What tactics am I going to use? And being able to say I'm taking a first lieutenant specifically because I can snap 3 units is huge. Yeah. Being able to pull 1 dice out of the bag and go bish bash bosh 3 units all activating at once is huge. Now there's a bit of skill involved because if you just do it straight away and don't capitalize on it, suddenly you're 4 dice down out the bag, and if you haven't used that to good effect, you're then going to have a bad time for the rest of the turn. But I know when a campaign day a while back when I took an 88 battery and I'd put a single first lieutenant behind them, obviously he can snap 3, so first dice out, bang bang bang, the guns go on ambush. You know, something like that, especially if you was to say take MMG teams, no matter how bad they are, I think the best way to take them would be to take a couple of them with an officer nearby and then chain reaction them.
Even then, not worth it. Don't bother.
I would say it's a nice themey, if not necessarily effective choice. And I think if you was going to take them, that would be the way to do it. I do think though, you know, if you just look at the rule and go, yeah, that's cool, buff, and go ahead and hope it does stuff for you, and you know the Blitzkrieg extra snap rule, it might not necessarily just turn up as doing stuff mid-game, but I think if you think about it in advance and actually think in your game plan and when you're building your list how you could use that, I think that has a lot of potential, that does.
Yeah, should just say this rule doesn't benefit armoured commanders.
No, so if you're taking an armed platoon, your tank commanders can't suddenly start snapping stuff. But there's nothing stopping you taking a first lieutenant in your armoured platoon and letting him follow up behind on foot so you can snap all 3 tanks at one go if you're feeling particularly nasty.
And another thing as well is the HQs don't give an extra bonus to leadership, so a second lieutenant is still +1 for leadership, not +2. So he only snaps an extra dice. He doesn't act like a first lieutenant. That's it.
I think the final point to make with officers is, as they are German officers, and we'll touch this on when we cover assault rifles, but they are allowed to take assault rifles. You know, officers can take their weapons for free, which is normally either a pistol, rifle, SMG, or assault rifle. That's a very good gun to have for free, especially when most people have to pay 5 points each for them. So an assault rifle is a good choice.
In a German army, it's the only time I ever take a buddy for my lieutenant, because the buddy can take the gun for free as well. So you get an officer and his buddy with 10 points of weapons for free.
It does mean they're quite a nasty little unit, somebody jumping out of cover and chucking 4 shots at something 18 inches away. That's pretty mean.
Yeah.
Topher and Dan, you're the cheese masters. You're playing a game. You're playing a game set in 1940. Your officers can take assault rifles in the rules, but do you if you're playing a competitive game set in a year where they wouldn't really have had them.
No,
What's the tournament rule?
Dan probably would, but I don't.
Well, for me personally, I don't, because my German army is a Fallschirmjäger themed army, and the early war Fallschirmjäger squads don't have access to that sort of weapon, really. So it's probably something that I wouldn't take. Although, if it was a no holds barred, of course, I definitely would.
I think I've got two German armies actually. I've got an early war one and a late war one. All my late war ones are obviously armed to the teeth with Panzerfaust and assault rifles and all that, and all my early war ones do not. They've all got SMGs or pistols.
So-
Therefore, I actually wouldn't use assault rifles.
Let me give you a really specific one then, Dan. You're going to the GT next year.
Yes,
you decide
I take assault rifles.
You decide, yeah, I was going to say, you decide to take a Blitzkrieg German army, 1939. If you're taking that, the available option for the officers are assault rifles. Do you take assault rifles in 1939 to the GT?
Every
Yes.
day of the week.
You're a bad man. I actually wouldn't. I wouldn't. I still wouldn't, even at a GT.
I would. I'd forget to use it.
I wouldn't. A final point I've literally just remembered about German officers is that they cannot be taken inexperienced. They can only do regular. They can only be regular.
Like
Which-
normal armies.
No, because like Soviets and British and I think Americans can take
Normal
inex
army.
officers.
Like Japanese.
Oh, they're normal, are
and
they?
German.
I think their officers weren't replaced as easily as the Allies were when they got sniped. Let's say.
Probably, yeah.
Which isn't a big point. It just means if you're trying to build a specific theme, or you're just being like us and trying to squeeze those last 15 points out at the end of the list, unfortunately, the officer isn't a place you can save points by making them inexperienced.
Yeah. So out of 5, then, guys, Blitzkrieg special rule out of 5.
Hold
Pete?
on. We've missed the most hated rule in the entire book.
Oh, go on.
Tiger Fear.
Well,
we haven't ranked officers yet.
We're giving ranks
But-
to them, and then we'll move on.
But nobody cares about officers.
I do. 4 out of 5.
1. Officers are crap.
This is what years of playing the Japanese one-trick Banzai army does to you.
This is why
Not
you'll
one
never.
trick, you
This
don't
is why
need the
you'll
officer.
rarely see Pete at a tournament with Germans, because he has absolutely no understanding of what an order test is.
Yeah.
I do.
Just going to
I
run.
use
You
order
can't do
test.
that.
Okay.
It's just when somebody puts 9 pins on my unit. Do I care? No.
A 4 to both. Solid 4. Blitzkrieg and initiative training.
Yeah, I think 3 for Blitzkrieg and 4 for initiative training. So yeah, like Pete says, then let's move on to Tiger Fear. Personally, my most hated rule ever, because I can
you
never
love
pass a Tiger Fear check.
I love it because Dan can never pass a Tiger Fear check.
Yeah. So basically, the Tiger Fear rule is if your units can draw line of sight to an enemy tiger and given an order that isn't a fire order, they have to take an order test and count as having an additional pin to any that they may already have, or 1 pin if they have none already, to be able to do that order. If they want to do a fire order, then they don't have to take a test as long as they are targeting the tiger itself. Which
Well,
is
the
just-
vehicle causing Tiger Fear, yeah.
I was going to say that's the problem. That would be a great rule if it was as you said it was, where it was tiger. Unfortunately, what they count
yeah, there's a
is
couple
where
of
the
Panzers
issues start.
and stuff like that.
Basically, it's any vehicle which is Panzer IV, late war Panzer IV or bigger. So
Yeah.
this rule was originally added so that because Germans are famous for their heavy tanks. The new people who start bolt action are always like, "Oh, can I take a tiger? Are they really good?" And unfortunately, they are awful. And the problem is Warlord after the first edition went, yeah, not enough people are taking tigers. People want to take tigers. Okay, let's do Tiger Fear. Let's give them the rule, which would be great if it stopped at tigers. Unfortunately, because the Panzer IV has access to it, it means that no one ever looks at the tiger, because why would you take a tiger when for literally half the points you could have a Panzer IV?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
that's where the abuse starts.
No, I'm completely with that. I have no objections to Tiger Fear. It's the attempt to put a quite themey and not necessarily broken rule. It's a little bit annoying, but it's not very broken into the game. But yeah, exactly. The fact that the Panzer IV can have it means that, yeah, why wouldn't I buy the tank for 230 points instead of for 500? You're literally saving. You could have 2 entire tanks with Tiger Fear for the cost of 1 actual tiger. It's just bonkers.
My biggest gripe with this rule is if I've got a tank that wants to drive up into the side of the tiger and shoot it point blank, I have to take an order test to do that. Whereas if I just want to sit there and shoot it right in its face from an inch away, I don't have to take a test, which is really odd. Whereas Infantry, I get it. There's a big, massive tiger. It's got a big, massive gun. It's going to blow your heads off. Hit the deck, you're going to get shot. But for a tank that's got its chance to flank round and shoot it, why do I have to take an order test for that? You know, it's a bit weird.
Have you read any of the just to jump on the historical part? Have you actually read any of the encounters? What they thought were tigers?
No.
They're so cautious. It's not even funny.
At least
That's probably why it's there.
at least in Normandy, wasn't it? I don't know if it's the same on the Eastern Front.
Oh no, the Russians just went at them.
Yeah, well, I think it was mainly it was they encountered a few of them in the 501st heavy tank battalion in Tunisia. So 1943, the first Tigers sort of went to North Africa, and literally they just crapped on everything. They were just amazing, and they sort of the only ones that. It was the tank crews mainly more than the infantry that were terrified of this tank that they couldn't hurt, that they were just trying to literally drive at to try. And so most of the tanks that got knocked out just got destroyed by technical faults and things like that. And so it just gained a reputation. But does that really, is it represented by the rule? No, I think I agree with Dan. It's a little bit clunky. And there are situations where you feel like it just doesn't make sense. And so it's things like anti-tank infantry, dedicated anti-vehicle infantry, still suffering the effects of Tiger Fear. Just things like that. The inability of units to be able to go round the side to maneuver. The fact that you can't advance towards something and shoot it without taking a penalty. There's a few things that it just doesn't feel quite right.
I think it's
the fact that the reason it's on the Panzer IV is because they were often mistaken as a Tiger from a distance, and when you get close to it, it's kind of, well, that's not a Tiger, you know?
Well, I mean, all the German tanks do kind of look like the same boxy shed from the front, so... My first experience of competitive bolt action, so the first time I went to Cambridge in 2017...
It wasn't fully competitive, let's be honest.
True, fine. I'm saying of competitive-ish bolt action. The first time I went to a bolt action event, I played 3 games, and 2 of them had a Panzer IV in, and the middle one had a Panther in. And I just think that actually that was a story that I think would be true for a lot of people. That back when V2 first came out, that a lot of the game tournaments and events around, the Panzer IV is the go-to unit of every German player. And it's a bit boring.
I think
it's a fantastic tank.
We'll cover that more when we cover the tank section. I think there's a lot to be said about which tank is best. But I think overall, as a rule, I don't think it does particularly what it's supposed to. It's set out to obviously make heavy tanks an attractive choice. It doesn't do that. I mean, theme, is it themey? You could argue one way or another. Depends on what your history knowledge is and what your opinion is of everyone and their dog being terrified of the tiger in Normandy. I think it's a bit overblown, personally.
I like the idea behind it. I like the idea that you want to justify the cost of a heavy tank by giving it a rule that affects the desire of units to target it. I just think it's a bit too broad brush. I think that making Tiger Fear more specific would help, but I don't hate it. It's annoying more than anything else. I think it's the constantly having to be reminded to take the checks against it, or constantly reminding your opponent to take them is just annoying. I don't like it. I wish I didn't have to.
My most annoying time I've ever played, and this was against Dan, was every time he went, I'll do this, I'd just have to sit there and say, Tiger Fear. I'll do this, Tiger Fear.
And in that game as well, probably 75% of my order checks due to Tiger Fear were failed. So it just made the game really slow and ponderous. And
it stuffed it up for Dan, so, silver lining.
Yeah.
I just think it's a bad solution to a problem that shouldn't exist. Because if Warlord actually, when they released this new book, took the time to repoint the Tiger to make it a decent option, we wouldn't need a stupid Tiger Fear rule. If you want people to take Tigers, just make the Tiger not stupidly expensive. If the Tiger was 300 points rather than 450, maybe it's worthwhile. Maybe you can not immediately ruin your list by taking one. But so I think it would be better to have a rule which says you get 100 points off your first heavy tank, for instance. Just throwing that out there, wouldn't that be so much better than Tiger Fear? Making a Tiger 350 points rather than having this stupid rule. But that's just like my opinion, man.
Careful, those opinions.
I know. Anyway, shall we go on to the final, rule, which is assault rifles?
They're meh. They're great on officers for the reasons that you said, but actually the main thing you want to take them on is squads. And if you do that, your squads just become insanely expensive. So you end up just taking them on small teams, or... I don't know. I've got a late war German force. There are very few assault rifles in it. The only assault rifles I take are on the units that metal model had anyway, like the SS, late war SS. They're good, but they just make everything a giant point sink unless you're getting them for nothing.
So for the potential new people out there, or people who don't necessarily know what assault rifles are, imagine the stats of an SMG, except they've got an extra 6-inch range. So they're assault weapons with 2 shots at 18-inch range. And for a regular squad, it's 5 points on top of your dude to arm him with an assault rifle. So if you take a veteran who is 13 points and give him an assault rifle, he's suddenly 18 points. So they put out a lot of shots at a medium range, but they're very, very expensive. So I would echo Sheffield in that they're pretty good. However, I think if it's another sunk cost fallacy if you start to buy loads of veteran squads and put assault rifles in every single dude, you're going to run out of points extremely quickly.
Yeah, if you've got 20 or 30 points left in a force and you're playing late war, you're spending them on Fausts. Let's be honest, you're not buying assault rifles with them.
Yeah, I think the only way I could ever see myself using them outside taking them on an officer for free is, like Sheffield said, if you've got 10, 15 points maybe and you've got 3 infantry squads, 1 on each NCO, might be worth it. But then I can think of other things to spend 15 points on. And this is assuming I've already bought 15 Fausts to go in the army as well.
See, this is where I'm going to differ quite a lot, because I played Germans in V1 where the assault rifle had a 24-inch range. It was just too good. And I've got squads where the NCO and 2 blokes will have assault rifles because I just find the extras pretty useful. The range isn't great, but it means that the squad's got to be mobile, so at least it forces you to shift.
The issue with assault rifles is that for 5 points more, you're comparing them to SMGs in my regard. It's basically an alternative SMG with 6-inch extra range. So if you look at an SMG as 3 points on top of your extra dude, you're basically saying, do you want to pay 2 points to give it an extra 6-inch of range? Now, the SMG, as far as I'm concerned, the thing you do with an SMG is you load up your squad with them, run right up into someone's face and just gun them down. You just, almost just ride up in a truck, jump out 6 inches away and open fire and just gun down anything that's in front of you. Now, paying 2 points per dude to upgrade that to assault rifles, what does that really do for you? I personally don't think not an awful lot.
If you take like a 10-man squad, for instance, and if you say 20 points will get you from a 10-man squad with all SMGs to a 10-man squad with all assault rifles, if you can get that 20 points and find yourself another 15 from somewhere else, you've bought that SMG squad a truck, and that's all of the shots, the same number of shots as you would do with assault rifles, plus the 12-inch movement and the extra order dice to get you there. So it's double benefit, really.
Yeah, I think it's a catch-22. I don't like them because I don't think they're necessarily that useful when compared to SMGs, which is Toph's point. However, I like them and I want them to be good, but the only way that you would make them a significant enough difference over an SMG is by giving them longer range, at which point, by making them range 24, as Pete says, you just turn them into filth and they're suddenly too good. So you can't really win. They're either not quite good enough for 5 points apiece, or they're too good and you're stuck.
I think a better rule would be, say, you can fire it as an SMG or a rifle, and it gives you the flexibility. But to, going by the rules as what they actually are, I echo the way Pete runs them, and I do that myself. Whereas if I say I have an 8-man squad with rifles, I don't mind paying 15 points to give 3 of them assault rifles. So suddenly it means within that 12-inch range, that's kind of the normal range you might be firing something at. You get an extra, 3 shots out of that, and it's just to improve your short range firefights. I definitely wouldn't upgrade my entire squad with them.
But if you think about your example there, if you're thinking you're getting into gunfights at around 12 inches, that 15 points buys you 5 SMGs.
It's not the gunfights around 12 inches that's going to matter. Gunfights that you can affect that way are the ones that are between 12 and 18, and that's normally with rifles where you're still going in and out.
Yeah.
And it also does mean if you do happen to find yourself within 6 inches of someone, or moving up to someone to shoot, it's that nice middle ground, between all or one or none of the thing. I definitely think full squads of them are a waste of time. I definitely think taking none of them is probably, if you was going to go all or nothing, probably nothing. But I think there is a case to be made for having say 2 or 3 in a squad. I think the problem comes is then when you got to work out which dudes are which, and you're standing 2 meters away from your models, and like, is that guy the assault rifle? Is that the rifle? And you got to get your head down and work out which one's which. You need to model them with different hats. That's the way I'd do it.
I can't believe you're complaining because you're so lazy that you can't bend down.
My general rule of thumb with assault rifles in German armies is don't spend more than 40 points on them.
Is that throughout the entire army? 40 points.
Oh no, hang on, I'll just have to adjust that. I don't know.
Because that'd be eight per army, yeah.
Yeah, don't spend more than 50 points in an 1,000-point army because you're not going to get the use out of it.
I'd also, like I say with officers, definitely, if you are going to take them, come up with a game plan beforehand. Don't just take 3 squads of 10 veterans and give each one an assault rifle and go, right, that's it, I'm going to win everything. Because you'll quickly find those 18-point men will not perform as well as an 18-point man should. You know, they will still die to a howitzer like any other bloke would, so it's probably not worth it.
For me, I think a good rule is a little bit like what Pete was looking at with the 50 points. I think if you're going to spend points on upgrading squads, usually if they can take assault rifles, they can take Panzerfausts, and you want to be buying Panzerfausts over rifles at a ratio of 2 or 3 to 1.
Yeah, I would agree. I think Panzerfausts are definitely a better investment. But then again, it depends on what the rest of your list is. If you're an armed platoon of 3 Panzer IVs, at that point, a Panzerfaust is pretty redundant.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just talking for if you're taking like a generic, platoon, you know.
Yeah, but that's our. I think so. So if you was to rank assault rifles as a out of 5 in terms of how much they bring to the list, what would you say?
Solid 3 for me.
4.
2.
I'm also going to go. I'm going to go with a 2.
Ooh.
But simply because if they removed assault rifles from the game, I don't feel it would actually change how I play Germans.
No.
And that's a real shame. Because it's an iconic unit. You know, it in terms of fluff and theme, it's really cool. But it's, as Dan says, it's always the first. When I'm trimming my list and trying to work out which bits do I want, which bits do I want to drop, assault rifles are always the first things to go.
Yeah.
And it's a real shame, you know.
Just remember, it could be worse. We could be talking about the vampire pattern ones that are 25 points each.
Oh, the ones that ignore night fight.
Yeah.
With the infrared goggles.
Yeah, they're 25 points each.
But the thing is, those are obviously for specific campaigns and theatres, in which case they might actually be really good. I've never played with them. If no one else can shoot you, but you can sit there and shoot them back on freeze, that sounds pretty good to me. But that's all pie in the sky, really.
What's that, Chef? You want to play at night?
Pete will only play in dark. He doesn't like people being able to see him. He's painted all of his models in UV paint. At least I hope it's UV paint.
It's not UV paint.
Okay, guys, so we're going to move on to the next topic now, which is we're going to go through the reinforced platoon selectors one by one and just give you a brief overview of what you can take as a German player. And we're also going to just kind of point out some notable units here and there. I mean, obviously, most of the units in most armies do the same sort of job. So if you're a regular infantryman for the Germans, you do pretty much the same as regular infantrymen for the British armies. So we'll start off first in obviously the HQ sections. So the officers, we've already covered them. They get the extra blitzkrieg rules, which are really useful. As Sheffield said earlier, I think you can't take them inexperienced, but you do get all your weapons for free. And also your little buddies that do accompany the officer get their weapons for free as well.
I think there's not much to really say about that anymore that we haven't already covered.
That's pretty much it, isn't it?
Yeah.
You can take things like your captains and your majors, but like we've said earlier, your officers do pretty much what your captains can do for around about 2/3 of the cost. So there's not much point in taking them really, unless you're doing a themed army.
I think there's some use, but I don't think they're specific to Germany, if that makes sense. I think they're as much use as they are in any army, so I don't think there's much to be gained by going into captains or majors specifically for Germany, if that makes sense.
I think what I would say on captains and majors for any army is you have to take a lieutenant first before you can take a captain or a major. So to pay 75 points for a first lieutenant, which does the same job as any regular captain, and then take a captain on top of that to get a 4-die snap, it's a lot of points sunk into that when you could take a squad for that captain instead and do much more work with it.
Taking a horde in experience list, or you're playing a 2,000-point game. Those are the things to allow you to take a captain.
Yeah.
Or you're doing both.
Yeah. So other HQ options, medics, which are the same as anyone else's medics. I think a medic is not.
Waste of
I normally
time.
think it's a waste of time. Some people like them. Each their own. I would say if you're taking an elite army with loads of dudes all tooled up to the max, you might want to take a medic. It might be worth more than if you're taking a load of cheaper dudes. You know, if you've got 25-point dudes, then medics are probably a bit more useful than normal.
The Germans do have, because it sort of comes under medics, so I'll mention it now. You can take a Hanomag ambulance as the Germans. So an armor 7-up ambulance.
Isn't it?
Which
Is it a Hanomag 7+?
Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
Hammer
Oh, cool.
ambulance.
It's the SDKFZ. I think it's the 82518. I don't know. Brad can tell me off later.
251, yeah. But that's quite a lot of points. It's 45 extra points to take the Hanomag ambulance. Or you
That
can
can't
take-
be killed by snipers or small arms.
No, you can take a generic field ambulance, which is just a soft skin for 50. But I don't think they're really worth it.
No, I'm just saying that
yeah.
there's an argument you could make for a medic in a German army. If your medic, it has tracks.
They can also take forward observers and air observers and artillery observers. I don't really think there's much to say there, other than they can also take assault rifles, and so can their buddies. Obviously with no upgrade, so it's another way to get some extra assault rifles in if you wanted. But
Quite an expensive option to put assault rifles in. You know, artillery observer is 100 points to get a 5-point gun, so not the best.
I will say, I don't, unless you're British, I think they're probably not really worthwhile. To be fair,
I've had some success with one.
yeah, but I think you're just spending an awful lot of points for something that might not actually work. 100 points is a big deal when it doesn't work for you. You know, when you roll that 2 or 3 and then a 1 and then nothing happens. I think for 100 points you want a bit more.
Most air observers, if you're not playing Germans and you've got your super captains there, they're going to be sniper bait, or you know, when your tank rolls on, you're going to shoot it with its machine gun first to try and get rid of it, or at least force it down every turn.
You're telling me even the free ones become sniper bait.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the free ones become sniper bait because they're free. So you say, right, you're not having that. Let's play on a level playing field for once.
But the point of it being free is if it fucks up, it doesn't matter because you didn't pay any points for it.
Yeah.
That's the end of the headquarter units out of the book. But if you have some of the theatre books to hand, I know Battle of the Bulge, definitely one. You have got chaplains and intelligence officers, which I think are pretty useful actually. But you don't see much of them.
Intelligence officers might be good.
Yeah,
So
they're my favourite
so-
of the two.
chaplains just have a rule that allows you to shed a pin before you take your test, which is pretty cool if you've got big units with lots of pins on them and you want to make your tests easier. And intelligence
Could be useful
officers,
for shirkers.
yeah, intelligence officers have a rule where you roll a dice and you could potentially get the first dice out of the bag at the start of the turn, which if you combine that with an officer who can then snap, yeah. If you take a first lieutenant with like a load of guns, like say an 88 line, and then combine that with an intelligence officer to make sure you get the first dice out, I think that's a powerful combo. But as that's not in the main book, I ain't going to talk about it. So, infantry units. I think Germans are quite spoilt here. They have an awful
Very
lot
spoiled.
a lot of different infantry units, and I think there's so much that we just do not have time to go through all of them. But there's regular ones, there's inexperienced ones, there's veteran ones, and the more veteran you go, the more opportunity for kit you tend to get. So a regular squad might say, have an LMG and up to three assault rifles and up to 2 Panzerfaust, whereas a veteran squad will be like, have 2 LMGs, have all the Panzerfaust, have all the assault rifles. So you basically have as much flexibility to build whatever you want, really. I mean, that all ties back to what we were saying about assault rifles and LMGs.
Encapsulate that perfectly. If you take them early war, they can have 2 submachine guns and an LMG. When you get late war, everyone can have a submachine gun or everyone can have an assault rifle. And you can have Panzerfausts. And you can have 2 machine guns as well. They just get every option you want.
Yeah.
Generally speaking, all the infantry squads are, well, with a couple of exceptions that we'll come to, they're all regular or veteran. And if they're sort of mid or early war, you get a lot of SMGs and LMG, but mainly rifles. If they're late war, you basically get whatever the heck you want.
Following up from what we said, although a lot of the veteran squads do tempt you and say, look, you can have 10 assault rifles, 2 LMGs, 10 Panzerfaust, and all of the toys.
Don't do it.
Don't do it. Just don't do it. Pick a role and stick to it. If you've got a squad that is going to run up and shoot something, you want SMGs or assault rifles. If you've got a squad that's going to sit at the back and hold objectives, you want rifles or LMGs. Pick a role and stick to it. Regardless of what you think of LMGs, they're definitely a sit back and shoot sort of weapon rather than a run at you and kick you in the dick weapon.
So what we wanted to do here was, we know that certain units that are common to every army we don't want to talk about. So we're not going to talk about paratroop infantry really, or engineers or motorbikes or things like that. But there are a few units in the German infantry stuff that are sufficiently different in more than just the equipment they can take. And so I think probably what we'll do is each one of us will just pick one that's our favorite or one that's of note and just talk about that. And I'll go first because I just wanted to talk about Schützen. Which seem to be getting a lot of hate at the moment because there's a lot of filthy stuff in the Western Desert campaign, but and Schützen are one of them. But bear in mind what we've already said at length about LMGs. The thing about Schützen is, first of all, they're smaller squads than regular German squads. Most German squads are between 5 and 10 men. Schützen can only be 8, but the first LMG in the squad costs you nothing. It's free. So it means that a regular squad of 6 with a free LMG are barely touching 80 points. In fact, I can't even remember. It might
It'd be
be
60,
less than that.
Because it'd
60
be,
points.
Yeah, 10 points per dude.
And so suddenly, when you're getting the LMG for nothing, there is an argument where actually lots and lots of that squad, if you spammed it, and of course they can buy a second LMG as well, so you can pay 20 points to have 2 of them, suddenly makes them a bit more appealing. But I think, given what we've said about LMGs so far, they're appealing, but not in a completely broken way. But they're interesting because they're different. They're a smaller squad. They have to be mechanized in all the lists that you can take them in. So you have to buy a transport for them, which is why you're getting them a bit cheaper, I think. And so the balance, the cost offsets.
When I look at Schützen, I look at them and think, why can't every single squad in the game have an LMG for free?
The second you hit maximum squad strength, give them a free LMG because they've bought like the 10, 20. 50
Yeah, that's a good idea.
But the tax for Schützen is that they have to be mechanized. So the tax is a truck. So
another thing is you see a lot of people going, oh, they're broken because, if you take 5 squads, that means Germans have 100 points of free shit, which would be true if anyone believed that LMGs were actually worth 20 points. Which I definitely don't. Even if they were 10 points each, I'd be like, they're probably around 10 points each, I'd think they're worth. In which case, if you had a squad of 5, you're saving 50 points. Who cares about 50 points? It's fine. I think Schützen are a really cool unit to build your army around. I think they're nice and cool. I don't think they're particularly overpowered. At least compare them to Japanese fanatic infantry. Who the fuck gives a shit about a free LMG? You know what I mean?
It's the only thing I do well at Japanese. Come on.
But I do think if you're going to build a desert themed force, I definitely think Schützen are your go-to unit. That's definitely your unit you should go to.
Well, you kind of have to. In all the 1942 lists, it's your only infantry option. Sometimes, if they're feeling nice, they let you have one unit of engineers, one pioneer unit, but that's it.
Which they're just the German guys with SMGs and a flamethrower. As a standard engineer unit is. Another unit which the Germans have access to, which is pretty unique, is the Gebirgsjäger squad. Which, did I pronounce that correctly? I hope so.
So close enough.
There's 2 versions. You've got a late war version and an early war version. So these guys have skis, and it can be given skis, which is pretty cool if you're playing campaign days, whereas if they have mountain troops, stuff like that. And as usual, the early war versions, they will come with less kits, a dude and an SMG. The later war dudes have all of the kit, up to 4 Panzerfaust, up to loads of assault rifles, skis, stuff like that. So what the skis do is allow you to ignore movement penalty for snow and other winter conditions. Now, it's pretty subjective. At tournament, you're not necessarily going to see much snow. I mean, Gaz's tournament at IMS coming up, there's going to be weather conditions. Suddenly, for 1 point a dude, it might be worth taking skis. 1 point, so everyone else is fucking about getting stuck in snowdrifts, and you're just like, whee, Panzerfaust in the rear.
Do you have to make those same noises?
You do. That is actually required.
I'll say that actually, Warlord's Gebirgsjäger models are really nice as well. So they've got a cool look to them.
You don't see many actually Gebirgsjäger themed armies either. The mountain troops. These were the guys who went up the Alps and went fuck you. They invaded Norway. Helped out on the Eastern Front. In all the cold conditions. They knew their stuff. That's why you can only take them veteran. It's a theme you don't see a lot of.
You'd see a lot of it at campaign days, I think.
Yeah, it's one for more campaign days, but I definitely think it's worth a look. Any other units people like the sounds of? Potential avenues to discuss?
One of my favourite units and somewhere are the Volksgrenadiers. Inexperienced squad. They're late war stuff, so they can be equipped up to whatever the hell you want, basically. They're green, but because of the mixed quality rule they've got, if you pass your green test, you can roll again. And then if you pass it again, you go from inexperienced up to regular, straight up to veteran. Suddenly,
Super green.
Am I right in thinking that's the only inexperienced unit that can take full assault rifle complement?
Yes.
Yes, any rifleman can be given an assault rifle.
So you've got your regular squad, which can only have assault rifles. Only have like 2 or 3 assault rifles. Meanwhile, you got this squad of utter chumps behind them, old men and kids with their walking sticks, and they just went, you know what? Let's give every single one of you an assault rifle.
I've never noticed this though. They're inexperienced, but you're paying veteran points for them.
Yeah.
Yes,
one
because
NCO
it's
and
because
4
they
men.
come with assault rifles as standard.
Yeah.
See that?
Oh crap! Yeah, so they do.
Yeah.
So I think, and Pete, I hope you agree with me on
yeah.
this. If you was going to take assault rifles in any capacity, if you decided I want to play Germans, I want to play nothing but assault rifles, I think Volksgrenadiers is the way to do it, because an inexperienced guy with an assault rifle is 13 points. No, he's not 12 points.
13.
Well,
13. Where's that extra? Oh, the extra points come from the extra green rule. Yeah, so they're 13 points each. So suddenly they're not stupidly expensive, and the fact that the assault rifles are an assault weapon means you don't get the minus for moving, which helps mitigate the fact they get a minus for being absolutely crap. So suddenly you can actually run and gun with them, and if you're good with your dice rolls, you can get a load of veteran guys for free.
Yeah.
And I know you've done that a lot, Pete.
Yeah, having played we played a large game where I dropped 100 Volksgrenadiers and a captain down. God, that was fun.
I remember playing you. That was a lot of fun.
There's a selector, isn't there, that lets you take a higher ranked officer as the main one.
No. It's we were playing just a larger game with.
It's like 2,000 points or something. Yeah.
Before everyone goes out, buys 100 Volksgrenadiers, and then moans to Topher because this happens. Remember, they are green, so if they roll a 1 on their green check, they're taking D6 extra pins, staying inexperienced, and probably going to get pinned off the board in the next turn or 2.
I was going to say,
oh yeah,
the worst I've ever done with Volksgrenadiers is I've deployed them. They've been preliminary bombardment. They've been hit on a 6. A guy died. I took 2 pins. I rolled my green check. Rolled a 1. Rolled another D6 for further pins. Rolled a 6, which then meant I had 8 pins, and then pinned the whole unit out, removed from the game before the game even begun.
Yeah.
That's the downside of taking green units.
Yeah. When you take a full squad of 10 men with assault rifles and they suddenly become 130 odd points for that squad, that's a lot to lose in 1 or 2 rounds of shooting from rifles as well.
If you're under, it's an investment. It's an investment unit. You pay the points and you hope you're going to get something good out of it. And most of the time you will get something good out of it. You know, you could go wrong, but that's the risk you have to take. Some people have balls. Some people are willing to take the risk.
Some people are born a Volksgrenadier. For everybody else,
there's regulars.
They do. It's only the first 5 men that come with assault rifles. You can purchase the additional men with just rifles. So if you want to hedge your bets, you can.
I think that's not a bad shout, because then at least you've got the 5 guys who you can just remove as casualties, and then you leave the original 5 to actually do the damage.
Yeah.
And you can give them 4 Panzerfausts. So because they're late war, they're just spoiled. I mean, yeah, of course you don't, because you're -1 to hit with them because they're inexperienced.
If you do it, you could do it with 1. You give them 1 to say to that tank, if I hit, you're dead. Go away.
It's a nice threat, just to scare your opponent. Just go, you know, these guys who are really shit with 7 pins and inexperienced, yeah, they've got a Panzerfaust, and your opponents will never go anywhere near them. They'll be absolutely terrified. So going from Panzerfaust, one of my favourite units, I know we said we'll stick to the book, but this one isn't in the book. It's from the Road to Berlin book, which is the Panzerzerstroyer unit, the Panzerzerstroyer Truppen, which basically translates to armor destroyers. So this is a squad of 7 men. They always come as 7. You're not allowed to give them any more or less, and they come as regular or veteran. They always come fully with SMGs. You're not allowed to give them rifles or assault rifles, and they always come with anti-tank rifles, anti-tank grenades. But the fun bit about this unit is that you can give the squad up to 3 Panzerschrecks.
And how many points is it for a Panzerschreck in this squad?
20 points each.
That's
And when you
revolting.
consider you can buy an LMG for the same points.
But an LMG won't ruin your day quite in the same way a Panzerschreck will.
No.
And for every dude you don't give a Panzerschreck, you can just give him a Panzerfaust instead, because, you know, options.
Well,
Niche,
do you know what? This is actually really interesting. Is when you've got that Destroyer squad, if you give them, say, 2 Fausts and 2 Shreks, and you want to walk forward a little, you can Shrek one tank and Faust the other one because they're one-shot weapons, and you can actually
You can do that
fire.
once. Yeah, you can do that once. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they are a bit expensive because obviously when they come as regular with an SMG and anti-tank grenades as standard, it means a regular's 15 points and a veteran is 18 points. So if you take a full veteran squad with 3 Panzerschrecks, you're looking at about 180 to 200 point unit, which is a fair investment. However, the amount of anti-tank that unit will put out, that's 3 strength 6 shots per turn into your enemy tank. I don't think there's another unit in the game that can output so much anti-tank unless you took a 10-man squad and gave every single dude a Faust.
Plus, the only thing that can really one-shot them is a tank, and a tank isn't going to want to get near them to actually try that in case it misses and gets butt fucked by 3 Panzerschrecks.
Yeah, so I don't entirely know if they're worth it competitively, simply because there are a lot of points, and if your opponent doesn't even bring a tank, you've just wasted all their points. Also, we'll get onto this a bit later. However, all anti-tank comes down to, is it better than a Faust? And when the Panzerfaust, as we'll discuss later, is probably one of the best anti-tank units in the game, it means everything else comes just a little bit short, which is no fault of the Panzer Destroyer Trooping Squad. You know, everyone has that same problem when it comes to anti-tank. But I think if you was building your list and you were saving 200 points, say, to take a Marder or a Stug or a Panzerfaust to deal with enemy tanks, I think you might actually be better taking a Panzer Destroyer Trooping Squad, because they'll do that job better than a Panzer would. I'd say that squad of infantry is better at dealing with tanks than a Panzer IV.
The main limitation is actually just obtaining enough Panzerschreck models.
Shout out Black Tree Design.
Yeah.
If they have a sale on every 20 minutes for like 50% off World War II models, and they do loads and loads of packs of like 2 Panzerschrecks for like £7. So when they're
the people who sold you the billion dog mines for your Soviet list.
No, they're another dude. They're other dudes. But so you can basically get one or two for about £3 each, especially when they're on sale. So yeah, go on Black Tree Design, get yourself signed up to their email chain, and just be patient. Just be patient. Your time will come. I currently have about like 8 or 9 Panzerschrecks on order, simply so I can build a list around these guys. So, as I say, I don't know how good they are. We'll see. But in terms of fun, they look really fun, and they're definitely different. No one else can do that.
Shout out to another squad that's just really simple. Our Beglite infantry. They're basically tank riders. They're the German tank riders. You're slightly more limited. You can only get them on, I think it specifies assault guns and tank destroyers. So you can put them on Stugs and various other things like that. But basically, it just allows one squad to get the benefit of transport for no additional cost. I think, is that in Ostfront?
It's in the Ostfront book,
Road to Berlin as well.
Yeah. They're regulars only, but they do have basically unlimited options in terms of toys. So you can give them full SMGs, full assault rifles, full Panzerfausts, an LNG. So if you was taking, say, a tank list and didn't want to have to bother buying lots of trucks, but you did have a couple of Stugs, it's always an option to take a Beglite squad rather than your normal squad, simply so you can mount up and get the free movement. So obviously it's only until the tank starts getting shot at, then you have to disembark like the Soviet tank riders do. But it's a good way to get a free transport option.
And just for those that, like me, every now and then quite like having an inexperienced squad of 5. If you're looking at the Strath Battalion Penal Squad, the Road to Berlin book, just pair them up with the Feld Gendarmerie Squad with those chained dogs. That's so good for those units.
So what's that combination? What do they do?
You use the Feld Gendarmerie or the Feld Jäger teamed up with the Strath Battalion Penal Squads, and you just any Strath Battalion Penal Squad starts to turn within 6 of one of those 2 squads will lose a Shirka special rule for that turn.
Which book is this? Sorry, Pete.
Road to Berlin.
So basically, the Road to Berlin has two units. They've got one which is inexperienced or regular shirkers. So the shirker rule basically means you guys are really cheap, but they count pins as double. And they've got another unit which is just a regular squad with normal sort of options, which for no extra points, no more points than a normal regular squad, has a rule where if these shirkers start within the turn within 6 inches of them, they ignore the shirker rule. So basically, if you're clever at deploying your units, you can get loads of guys with the shirker rule for really cheap. Keep them dotted around the Feld. I forgot what the name was now.
Feldgang.
They're the military police.
The
That's
military
what-
police. Yeah. I'm going to say military police. If you get lots of shirkers and then swap and then keep them around the military police, you get a lot of dudes for cheap. And as long as you're clever about making sure those squads are in the right place at the right time so people don't run away or just stop following orders, that's a really cool mechanic to get some more dudes on the table. I mean, you are giving yourself a weakness. Shirkers aren't great, but it's a good way to save some points.
Yeah. One of the last squads we wanted to go through is Brandenburgers. Now,
Bill!
I had these pulled against me at the GT, and let me tell you, when you've got Finns that love to outflank on the back of the board and suddenly Brandenburgers turn up, you are shitting your pants in case it doesn't happen.
But Dan, what's a Brandenburger?
Yeah. So a Brandenburger squad is 5 men to start with, but they are 95 points for the 5 men. So they work out at roughly, I think it's about 19 points a model. So they're very, very expensive to start with. They're veterans, so nice and easy. They come with a pistol and a rifle, so you get tough fighter. You can buy additional men for the squad, and they are 19 points, and they come with a pistol and rifle. Any man can take a machine gun or an assault rifle, but the one caveat here is your assault rifles are only 4 points a model. Woo! So almost worth it. You can have a light machine gun, blah, 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 as normal. But the big selling point for the Brandenburgers is their special rules. Now, they have about 9 million of them. Start off, their fanatics. When they outflank, they ignore the -1 for coming on from reserve, which is huge as well. Sabotage special rule. This is where it gets interesting for the Brandenburgers. If you have enemy units in reserve, they suffer a -1 to come onto the board. And that's in addition to the normal -1 that you get for coming on as an outflanker. If the unit is outflanking, they need to take a second test with an additional -1 again. If they fail that, they can only deploy 12 inches up the board edge rather than, if you've waited till turn 3 or 4 and you want to come 36 inches onto the board. So that is huge as well. So it really can neuter an army trying to get around the flanks of your German force. And then one of the last ones as well, paranoia. Enemies suffer a -2 to their rolls when they suffer a foo bar. So suddenly when it's only a 1 or 2 start shooting stuff, if it's now becoming a 1, 2, 3 or 4 and you're going to gun down your own troops, it's suddenly going to hurt a whole lot more.
So if you take one squad, you get that for the whole game, or like while they are alive. You don't have to take like a whole army of Brandenburgers.
Nope, it's one unit.
Well, the rules are quite odd. It just says these rules apply, but rules as written, if you've taken Brandenburgers in your force, this happens. But I would argue that if they're not alive anymore, if you've shot them all and they're dead, the -2 shouldn't activate. But it doesn't say whilst this unit is alive, all of these rules apply. So it's a bit of a grey area.
I don't think it is. I think it's quite clear. The idea is that paranoia represents the action they've taken before the battle or things like that in order to sow dissent and sow paranoia among the troops. So even if you did kill them, it's still the effect of the psychological warfare that they've done. I'd agree they have to be on the table, but I think that even if they're destroyed, the enemy should still suffer the effects of them.
I think there's quite a nasty psychological combo because if they're making people fail order checks and they're making people do foobar, extra damaging. Everyone hates it when you kill your own units because you foobarred. If you combine that with say Tiger Fear to make people take tests, if you combine that with say a couple of artillery forward observers to give people pins, you could design some pretty nasty lists about that just by making your opponent kill themselves. Really, you just sit back.
I mean,
and tear themselves apart.
He was talking about things like Volksgrenadiers. There's another squad like that called the Ostruppen, which is inexperienced Sherpas. They're 4 points a man. If you take 3 or 4 squads of them, yes, they're shit and they're not really going to do much. But if you can put a pin on a couple of units and, like you say, combine it with Tiger Fear and then have Brandenburgers in your force, suddenly they're a force multiplier. So they're not actually that brilliant on their own. They're not going to kill a lot of stuff because they're only 5 veterans. They're not going to hold a flank down. They're not going to go and bombard the enemy's objective and take it from them on their own. But they will make everything else that's on the board a lot better and make your opponent's stuff a little bit shitter.
They're basically like the German SAS, aren't they? Like special forces. Yeah.
Well, that's where they appear in Western Desert. So in the Western Desert campaign supplement, which I think is the version of the rules that Dan was looking at, they're in the back of Western Desert in the section of the rules that's for special forces. So they are exactly with the LRDG patrols and the Sahariana, the Italian special forces. So that's where they sit, and it's very specific where you can use them. One of the complicated things about Brandenburgers is I think there are at least 3 source books that reference them. So the rules in the back of the Western Desert are the nicest because it makes them powerful as sort of a unit that debuffs your enemy's ability to act fluidly by making them paranoid and by making them take lots of checks. But I think they appear in, it's either Road to Berlin or Ostfront. And in Ostfront, they've been banned from every tournament because they're the ones where you can deploy them as your opponent's army and then reveal them as actually your opponent's units become yours, and they really do make a horrendous mess of the way the game works if you try and play it competitively.
See, the Ostfront book actually says with your opponent's approval on those rules, so if you as an opponent go no, then they don't get to use those.
That's like my opponent asking if he can gently serenade me as he puts his fist up my yaxi. You know, it's just like it's not my. If you play with drinks, maybe, but not on a standard night.
Is that Brandenburgers are a unit that is always called Brandenburgers, but represents several different things at different times and in different theatres. So I think in the interest of being fair, think carefully about what sort of army you want to build and take the one that matches that. But if you're playing purely to win, take the best one, which is probably the one from Western Desert, because it balances the points against a lot of really useful abilities.
Another thing with the Brandenburgs as well is if you wanted to if you get your opponent's permission to use them, as Sheffield says, with the 3 special rules, that means you can take allied vehicles, you wear their armor, and no one can shoot you or anything. If you combine them with Einsatz units, like the Einsatz infantry that you can't shoot at, the Einsatz HQs, and the tanks like the M10 tank destroyer proxy thing, suddenly you've got an army that can put out a lot of pins at very close range before you can even touch it. So it walks up into your face, you can't do anything about it, and then they go, surprise cockface, here's a billion SMGs, everything's dead.
So that's the very specialist units from the Battle of the Bulge, the Germans dressed up as Americans.
Allies,
Isn't that basically been banned from every single event except the GT?
That's what we're saying.
I think that's definitely a Phoebe kind of a campaign style unit rather than one you should consider as a normal day-to-day unit option then.
If your friend doesn't mind being bent over the table for an afternoon, ask if you can play Einsatz.
That is an army I would play Pete's Japanese at night with.
Okay, and I'd win.
Pete would win that because it doesn't work. It only works against ally infantry.
That is true.
Right, and the final unit, which isn't on the notes because I totally forgot about, and how could I forget, I'm going to add it now, is Waffen SS. The bad boys of the book. So you've got two types. Well, you got 3 types. You got they're in the main book.
Just the bad boys of the book, eh?
The bad boys of the book. So you've got
the bad boys everywhere.
Yeah. You've got the early war version, the late war version, and the cavalry version. So the early war version are just like a normal early war veteran squad, except they can also take fanatics for 3 points each, which I don't think fanatics is worth 3 points. Not really.
You should think it's worth 3 points.
Yeah, I think Fanatics for 3 points is great when you can make them all tough fighters as well, which I don't think you can. You can't just give them tough fighters. You can only give them SMGs or assault
Yeah,
rifles, and
correct.
by that,
And you can't even give all of them SMGs.
yeah. So by that point, you're kind of over-investing to the point your squad's not going to be worth it anymore. Especially if you go late war and take veteran SS Fanatics with assault rifles each, and suddenly they're 21 points a dude. And it's an over. Yes, that's a tough unit. Yes, it will kick the crap out of other units in combat. Yes, it will still lose to Gurkhas. So probably not worth it.
If you're looking for a unit to just sit on an objective and not be destroyed, Fallschirmjäger will do the same job because they're stubborn, so they don't take any penalties for morale when they take morale checks. So
I think that's a better rule overall than Fanatics, just for how it's so much cheaper.
Yeah.
I mean, still take a Waffen SS army if you're interested in rebuilding that, simply because they're veteran infantry, they're good. It's just the thing that makes them Fanatics, the thing that makes them Waffen SS probably isn't really worth it. Leave that rule off your list.
The toys. Yeah, their benefit is they get all the toys and they get more toys earlier. So whereas with most of the mid-war stuff, when things made the change from being here infantry to being grenadiers, that when that change happens, suddenly all the German infantry gets a lot more toys. Your basic squads can take 2 LMGs. You start getting the SMGs. Basically, the SS get that a bit sooner. So if you're playing a historically themed thing, there's an argument to be made if you're playing a campaign day that's early war or things like that, the SS suddenly become a bit more viable because you can have the toys that nobody else can when you're playing that early.
The only time, another thing, the fan unit cavalry, so it's basically the same as the early war unit, except you can buy them all horses for 2 points each. So the horses give them all tough fighter, and the horses make them advance 9, run 18, and it means they can run away recce like a vehicle can, but obviously they're on a horse. That unit, I think Fanatics is a lot more valid, because for 18 points you can have a dude on a horse with tough fighter Fanatic who can charge 18 inches.
And he's a veteran dude as well.
And he's a veteran dude. And that unit, just because cavalry just pretty good by themselves, I'm giving them Fanatics, so they're definitely going to win. It's a combination of willing to try. I've not tried it out yet, but I reckon I wouldn't go with a full army. I think a full army again you're going to go to diminishing returns in the end. But I think just having one key unit to hold back and just to be able to plug a hole in your line is a good option potentially.
A 5-star unit that would be good.
Yeah. I think that's 5 for just under 100 points.
90 points.
90 points. That's not a bad shout. I think they could do quite well.
It's a general rule of thumb in bolt action that adding a horse to anything makes it better.
Including heavy howitzers. If you add that 8-point horse, it makes them so much better.
Yeah, that's kind of what I meant. Answer me. Is there a unit in bolt action that a horse does not improve?
Yeah, the tiger.
Yeah.
I don't know, you'd feel like you were getting a bit more for your points.
Depends if you can strap the horse to the front and act as some body armor.
I don't know. Would you prefer to take a tiger, or would you prefer to take 100 horses?
100 horses, it'd be
well, 100 mules, I guess, for 4 points each.
I would take 100 so that I could have that dice bag.
Yeah.
Oh, look, it's me. Oh, look, it's me.
Right, I think that's us covered for infantry, though. Unless there's anything else we've missed. At least any of the standout ones we've missed.
Nah, I think all the rest are pretty generic, aren't they?
Cool. Right, let's go on.
No, just to bring it back, there is the option if you're running an X squad again to run Hitler, similar to Volks Grenadiers, but they don't rank up twice. They rank up once, and then if you get the rank up on a 5 or 6, they become Fanatics. That's quite nice.
So would you prefer? It's a bit different because obviously the Volks Grenadiers come with assault rifles, which the hit youth don't. But would you prefer, if you take everything equally, an inexperienced unit that then becomes regular and then becomes Fanatic, or which becomes regular and then becomes veteran? Which one would you think is better? Bit of both. Two of each units.
I'd take Volks Grenadiers. Personally.
Yeah.
I'd like the Grenadiers to go forward and attack with. I'd like the Hitler to sit on an objective with, purely because if you become Fanatic on an objective, you become a problem.
One good thing about the Hitler Youth is that they can take 5 Panzerfausts.
Yep.
And bicycles.
Yeah, why not?
So you just run up beside that tank and just go.
Why not? Because
you don't run up the side of the tank. You cycle up the side of the tank.
You pedal. The only rule with the Hitler Youth on bicycles is that you need to make the same noise as the Teletubbies do. Little Poe does on his little tricycles. You gotta go baddy 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 as you pedal up beside and then blow up that Sherman. That is a rule.
Or go,
It's in
bring,
there, the
bring.
book. Yeah, bring.
We've not talked about this on the podcast before. I don't want to open a huge can of worms. As I know that there are people who don't play SS for certain reasons, and people who they a particular unit they just don't want to play, like NKVD, the Soviet police, and things like this. And I don't know what it is, but for me, unless I was playing a Fall of the Third Reich army, I just wouldn't get any enjoyment from Hitler Youth at all.
I think
That's
it's
fair.
yeah, it's fair. I wouldn't. Although myself personally, I'm a heartless bastard, and therefore it doesn't bother me. It doesn't necessarily. I can see why other people wouldn't see it that way, and I'm never going to sit there and go, "Oh, look at you, snowflake." You know, obviously this is a touchy subject. There are people who lived through the war. There's millions of people who suffered through the war. So I definitely think there's a bit of caution to be had. Personally, you know, it's all a game. It's all a bit light-hearted. Not to say that it's not a serious subject. You know,
No,
this isn't the time to get that.
No, I didn't.
On your
I didn't want.
stick.
I don't know what it is. It's like if I was going to a tournament, there are especially a GT. Let's say I'm going to the GT. Even if it would advantage me to do it, I don't think I'd take the Hitler Youth. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's
mad.
No, that's a fair point to take. You know, everyone has their own morals. You know, but I'm glad that the option's there, and then people can make their own
No, they're
minds
a
up.
really cool unit. Yeah, a really cool unit. They should be in the book. I'm not saying anything like that. I don't know what it is. But for me, as a competitive thing, somehow that crosses a line for me.
Well, you know, everyone has their own lines in the sand, and as Juggernauts, our lines are normally a lot further in the sand than most people. But that's a fair point, and one that I wouldn't begrudge you for.
Yeah, but I'll shut up now.
Shall we make more dick jokes? I feel like we're getting a bit serious. Shall we make more dick jokes? Right. So if that's squads, shall we go on to teams? Now, most of these will be a bit kind of simply because they're the same teams everyone has options with. You know, a sniper is the same as a mortar is the same as, you know, as a flamethrower is. They're the same in every single list, so we won't go too details for them. However, Germans do have access to almost all of them. They have access to a machine gun team. You know, it's a bit different for the Germans.
Waste of time.
They get the extra shot. But
worst unit in game.
Why would you
it's
take
really
a machine gun team when you can take something in the armored car slot we'll get to later?
I think for 50 points, you can either take a machine gun team with 5 shots, or you could have a squad of 5 regular dudes with 5 shots who can also move and fire, charge stuff, more bodies, better at holding objectives. Yeah, this debate has gone on bot action circles for years. I'm not going to repeat it here. Machine gun teams just do not do what they should do, and even with that extra shot, although they're femey as fuck, they're really fluffy, really cool unit, I just do not think they're worth taking in your list. And I think if you're trying to gear your list up to a tournament and you're taking MMG teams, seriously, take a look and reconsider.
So when we were talking earlier and we were saying, you know, if you're looking at having 50 points spare in your army to put in some Panzerfausts and some assault rifles, drop the fucking medium machine gun team, put those weapons in, because they would do infinitely better than the MMG team ever does.
Yeah, quick aside, would you drop the Hitler's buzzsaw rule in favour of a free unit in the German army being an MMG?
Yeah, right.
You know what? Funnily enough, thanks to the Hitler's buzzsaw making vehicles so much better, that would probably be a nerf, and one that I wouldn't necessarily disagree with.
I'd take it. I'd take it as a nerf too. Have a free MMG team. Okay.
I mean, I would prefer that MMGs are fixed so that everybody can use them, rather than just Germans. You know, there's also many ways and different options that people could fix them. Let's not go into that now because that's an entire topic on its own. But currently, as it stands, machine gun teams are just shite.
Can I talk about the best small team available to the German army?
Okay.
Which is the Goliath demolition vehicle.
Okay, so this is one of the options which no one else can take, which is an anti-tank team. So it sits in the same slot as your Panzerschreck team or a bazooka or an anti-tank rifle would, and this is a one-shot weapon. So if anyone's ever played Dog Mines, this works in exactly the same way, which is rather than shooting, you pick a target which can either be a stationary vehicle, so one that doesn't have a run or advance order next to it, or a building, and then you roll
unit inside a building, not just a building,
or a unit inside a building. So you can't even fire it at an empty building. So you roll the dice, and you have to be 18 inch range, and you can advance and do it. So effectively you've got a 2-foot range, and you roll the dice. And on a 1 to 4, absolutely nothing happens, and you've wasted 70 points. Well, 60 points even. On a 5 to 6, if it's a vehicle, it takes a strength 7 hit. And if it's a building, it takes a heavy howitzer, which is a 3d6 hit.
You can recce away from it as well.
And if you recce away from it, then it's an automatic miss. The Goliath can't keep up with it. Bless its little cotton socks. It just can't go.
Yeah, 60 points regular, 78 points.
Yeah, and it's a 3-man team, so it doesn't even get the benefit of small team. So
it's just amazingly cool, really interesting unit, unique to the Germans, and completely useless.
So I think
like...
Sorry, go on.
It's just dog mines, but like worse in every conceivable way.
So okay, right, let's compare it to dog mines then, because that's the equivalent, and that's what everyone's thinking. Dog mines are one of the most OP underpointed unit in the game. Goliaths are one of the most overcosted stupid units in the game. So what's the difference? So a dog mine, at its cheapest, inexperience, which you take it in experience because obviously you're rolling on a table. It doesn't matter what experience you are. You still have the 1 to 4. It's a 1 to 3. It fails rather than a 1 to 4. So dog mine has better chance of going off. On a 1, you target one of your own units, but if you don't have any stationary vehicles nearby, obviously it does nothing. And on a 4 to 5, it takes a strength 5 hit, and it's only against vehicles. So, and that's 13 points a dude, because they come in squads of 2, and each squad of 2 has 2 dog mines for 26 points. So for the price of a regular team, you can get 4.5 dogs basically for the price of a single Goliath.
Which are amazing, because just one dog is better.
I think the problem with the Goliath is it's a bit too expensive, and it's a little bit, when it only has a third of a chance of actually working, you're rarely going to get your 60 points back. Even if you're good at rolling 5s or 6s, you better hope that you have a decent target. You best hope that your opponent's tank is actually there, actually parks in front of you, and you best hope that your enemy gets in that building so you can go and bomb it. Of which, if they see a Goliath, the Goliath are going to do neither of those things. You don't get in a building when you see a Goliath sitting outside. It just doesn't happen.
I suppose the only good news about the Goliath is it hasn't actually got the, so you can't just snipe the bugger out.
No, it isn't a team weapon. It's just an ability for a small squad, so you can't snipe it out now. It's a shame because it's such a cool unit. You know what I mean? It's really cool, and it just does nothing.
We're joking about it because we'd really like it to be good. We really like it when Warlord put in these interesting units and these interesting little mechanic things that are just different from everything else, when armies have them. It's just a real shame when actually just the quality of how good it is makes it not usable.
I mean, it goes in your anti-tank slot, so primarily you're going to buy it to try and deal with anti-tank. And yes, it's a +7 hit, but for 5 points, you could just take a Panzerfaust, which gives you a +6 hit. So when the regular Goliath is 60 points and a Panzerfaust is 5, you can either take a Goliath or 12 Panzerfausts.
I'll have 12 Panzerfausts.
Precisely.
Well, let me ask you a question then, because you like the idea of the Goliath.
Oh yeah.
If you were able to put these in teams, like the Zastroyan squads can take a couple of Panzer Shreks, if you were able to put one of these in a team for every unit on the board, and it was 20 points, would you take it?
So if you're saying, if you took a regular squad, you could for 20 points give them one Goliath shot.
Yeah, you can take 20 points for a machine gun.
That would be so much fun. Yeah. Because you can put 20 or 40 points at the end of your list in there, and it's a bit of fun. And if it doesn't work, you've only lost 20 points, not 60.
Yeah,
that'd be so much more fun. Just because your opponent won't see it coming.
Yeah.
I'm just walking up to you. You're in a bunker. Howdy ha! Aren't you tough? Oh wait, no, the Goliath's rolling towards you, and you're dead. The end. That'd be so much more fun. It's a real shame. And let's go on to it because I keep coming back to it. Let's talk about the Panzerfaust because. While we're going into teams, a lot of them are anti-tank options, like let's do the Panzerschreck at the same time. Panzerschreck, it's a +6 shot, it's a 2-foot range weapon just like a bazooka. It's 80 points for a regular, 80 points when a Panzerfaust is 5 points per shot. And unfortunately, this is a fundamental problem with the German book, is that every single anti-tank weapon you could possibly take is garbage because the Panzerfaust is so stupidly underpointed. Why would you take anything else? To take anything but a Panzerfaust, you're selling yourself short.
You can buy, 16 Fausts for the same cost?
16 Panzerfausts for the cost of a Panzerschreck team. So that's like 4, if you've got 4 squads in your army, that's 4 Panzerfausts per squad. You don't need any more than that. Why are you messing about with a Panzerschreck team? And that's the same problem with the Goliath, it's the same problem with any anti-tank gun you're going to take, it's the same problem with the Panzer Destroyer trooping squads, as cool as they are. It's fundamentally if you take anything but Panzerfaust, you're doing it because you love the unit, not because it's particularly good.
Yeah.
And I think that's a real shame. And I really
Massive shame.
I think what really did it is when Warlord in V2 removed the -1 to hit for Panzerfausts. Just because since then they're just too good. They are just too good, and it's a real shame because it just sucks so much otherwise fun stuff you could possibly take.
Exactly. The problem is that so if you look at like the list makeup of tournaments and things, that a lot of German players are taking the Panzer IV with the super heavy AT gun, not as a tank destroyer, but as a cheap access to Tiger Fear, and all of their anti-tank capability exists with the Panzerfaust.
Yep.
That's what it's doing. It's not just that it's giving you a really good, unexpected anti-tank capability. It's that actual anti-tank units across the entire list, be it infantry or vehicle, are just nowhere near as good. It's not just comparing it to the other small team anti-tanks. It's literally every other.
Mean, if you like compare it to, like, say, a Marder, which is a tank destroyer, you buy it for the heavy tank gun to go hunting down Shermans. You know, it's 150 points, really, for a normal sort of one, depending what gun you buy it. I mean, you could have 30 Panzerfaust for that. 30. And I think what you say is correct about how anti-tank guns are too expensive in the German list, but anti-tank guns are too expensive across the entire frickin' game as far as I'm concerned. Why the hell does a medium AT gun artillery piece cost 80 odd points or so? I don't know how much it is off the top of my head.
About 60, I think.
Yeah, compare that to a howitzer. It's not even in the same league, you know what I mean, in terms of usability. And I think dropping the price of anti-tank guns would also mean the tanks that have said anti-tank guns would also come down in price, and suddenly that would make things like Tigers and things like Marders more competitively when matched to the little shit offspring people have, like the really 20 billion shot Stuart, as an example, or the Panzer I. They have no right being as cheap as they are because, frankly, the amount of machine gun you take them for the machine guns, not the anti-tank gun. But the way their points are worked out is for the anti-tank gun, not the machine guns, and it's a very backwards way of doing it.
Yeah. To just bring this back to teams, there is actually an option in the flamethrower team in the German. I'd love to try the Eintos Flammenwerfer. So instead of having one man-pack infantry flamethrower, one-shot infantry flamethrowers for that team, which, because they're one shot, you could shoot 2 different units in one turn.
Okay. So and that's the same points as a normal flamethrower?
Yeah.
And one other thing as well from this is, once the flamethrower team has shot, and everyone knows, anyone who's ever played me knows this always happens, the first shot of the game always misses and you roll a fuel, that flamethrower team is dead. With these two Eintos Flammenwerfers, with the 2 one-shot weapons, once you've shot both of those one-shot weapons, you don't technically run out of ammo, so you then just become a small team that runs around doing not a lot, just getting in the way.
Yeah, well, they don't have any weapons other than the
but they're
flamethrower.
2 men that don't die. So if you're playing kill team, kill points, or if you're playing things like get on an objective, they're just a small team that runs to an objective and then goes down for the rest of the game.
I'd never actually considered that. I always assumed that once you'd fired them, they'd disappear because they don't have weapons. But I guess you're right. There's no actual rule there saying that they have to disappear.
Well, they're not. If you read the flamethrower rule, you have to take the test after you've shot every time. But because these are one-shot weapons and they're automatically discarded, you don't die. You don't run out of ammo and then remove the team.
Wouldn't you have to technically, because they are still flamethrowers, roll the dice anyway? And if you get a 2 to 6, it doesn't freaking matter. They're not shooting it anyway. But if you rolled a 1, because they're still flamethrowers, you'd have to remove them, even though they've got no ammo anyway.
But then,
that's a really good question.
Then if you play by that rule,
you would.
Oh, it's bollocks rule. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying it's a bit silly. It needs a bit of clarification.
If you played by that rule, Topher, what you would have to do is, when you shot both of them in one go, you would have to roll 2 separate fire checks to see if they both ran out of ammo, and only on a double one would they be removed.
Well, no, you'd roll the 1 and then you'd roll the dice for each bloke, and if
you'd remove them individually.
Yeah.
The idea of the team weapon is, once that special weapon has been removed, like in a sniper shooting a machine gun team, for instance, once that machine gun team has been shot by the sniper and you're exceptional out of the game, you don't do that for this team because they're both one-shot weapons. You both have a special weapon.
They're still a team weapon. They still disappear under a sniper.
If you look in the special rules, the team weapon,
is the flamethrower,
yeah,
not the Eintos.
Yeah. This is one for the FAQ.
Really?
Dear Warlord, what happens when a unit with Einstoff
I've got better.
So I can answer the question about the running out of fuel though. On a result of the war, the flamethrowers run out of fuel and is now using the entire flamethrower team. So you've got your 2 shots. If either dice roll a 1, they're both dead.
I'll
no,
tell you
because
what.
the other one has a special weapon as well.
No, but Pete says you roll the one die like for the team. It says, and it is still a team of 2. You know what,
The entire team
listeners, let's not argue about this. You guys tell us what you think, because this is stupid. I know how we'd probably play it, which is the way Dan says. However, I'd be interested to know what your thoughts are.
For me, rules as written, I accept what Pete says there, but the Eintos Flammenwerfer does not have the team weapon special rule.
No, it doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't.
But it does have the flamethrower word, so it affects flamethrowers.
Well, no, that's not necessarily because you have flamethrowers in squads, don't you?
Well.
It's basically like a squad of 2 rather than a team weapon, which is a little difference. Okay, we've already spent too long on it. Listeners, tell us what you think. Other team weapons, you're basically looking at anti-strike rifles, mortars, the same as everybody else. I don't feel that we need to really go into them, other than to say mortars are awesome in any list, and anti-tank rifles are wank in any list. So,
sorry, I'd like to correct you there. Anti-Topher rifles.
No, just anti-tank rifles. They just don't exist. They're awful, awful units. I have my opinions. I'm going to stand by it. Prove me wrong. I don't care. Anti-tank rifles are stupid. Shut up.
I'd just like to add to this bit that actually one of the things you really should consider if you're looking at playing Germans competitively is there's not very much in the German list for under 40 or 50 points that you can buy that's worth taking, whereas a regular light mortar is one of those things. It's not great. It's not going to win you any battles, but actually 35 points just for being something of that sort of value that's worth taking is a serious consideration.
Cool. Right.
Assuming you've already got a Kuba wagon, which is the other thing that goes there.
So let's move on to artillery. Let's try and rattle through it. So again, most of the artillery units are the same as as any other army. You know, a light howitzer, a heavy howitzer, a medium howitzer, they're all the same. There's nothing really to say there. The thing the Germans are famous for is their multi-launchers. So, although most armies have access to a multi-launcher, whether it's a Nebelwerfer or a land mattress, except Japanese, screw you, you've got enough good stuff, you're not allowed multi-launchers. It tends to be German players who use them. Simply, I just think it's because the Nebelwerfer is so iconic, and it's quite easy to get a model. You know, if you're an American player, you actually need to scratch build your own land mattress. It's a bit of an issue. But a German player, you just go up to your local store, pick up a Nebelwerfer up off the shelf, and bish bash bosh, you're ready to go.
Love them.
Really great. If you want to be really gamey about it, and take away 10 points, and save yourself 10 points. Reduce the crew from 4 to 2 and turn it into a howling cow.
I wouldn't do it. Not for 10 points. Not worth it.
I would if it made it a small team, but because it's an artillery piece, it doesn't.
No, that's exactly my... Because the rules are a little poorly written in that it kind of says, oh, it's treated as a heavy mortar, which confuses people. What it is, in terms of rules-wise, it's a light artillery piece. It's an artillery unit, not a team weapon, not an infantry team, which means you can't one-shot it with a sniper. It doesn't have an NCO, you know, it doesn't have any of that rubbish.
Yeah.
It needs to be, you know, you can only move 6 inches a turn with it. You can't move it in terrain. All of the rules that normally come with artillery. But the problem, so that's why Dan says it's a 2-man team, it wouldn't get a small team. The reason I wouldn't take it is simply because you kill one of them and then you're having to take a half check to see if you run away. And I'm prone to fail those. I think for 10 points, I'd rather 4 crew members have a bit of protection, you know, keep yourself alive. Because people will be shooting at this unit. It's one of the most broken units in the game. It's a Nebelwerfer. There's a reason most tourney lists you'll see at least 1 multi-launcher, possibly even 2, maybe 3 if you're that guy. And it's a brilliant unit.
I agree completely. My feeling is pretty simple. So I agree with everybody here. I think that a Nebelwerfer is brilliant, and it's basically it's not quite as good as an observer, but you can use it every turn.
Yeah. One thing I would say to most people is we usually take them in the Juggernauts as inexperienced, and then either hide them behind a piece of heavy cover, so you get a good minus to hit you, so you're not being shot easily, or you leave them in the corner and just as far away from the enemy's big stuff as possible, and then they last a lot longer and you haven't got to take order checks as often because they will be inexperienced, not going to pass very often. So the safer you can keep them, the better.
I mean, I don't want to go into too much detail about how to use a multi-launcher because that's an episode in itself. If you've listened to our previous episodes, you'll know we've used them, gone into a bit of detail as to how we use them. But I will just say, an inexperienced one is 52 points. That is so cheap for what they do. They are far too cheap, But the option's there if you're so inclined, and if you're building a German list, it's very iconic, especially a late war one. Specifically a late war one even. As I say, that's not to say the other options aren't good. A medium artillery piece is a medium artillery piece. Can't argue with a howitzer, but a Nebelwerfer is definitely up there. Just to sow terror.
and to get the sound effects.
Yeah, they're one of the units that if you have a half decent turn, you can win a game on that one order dice. If it hits 2 or 3 units in one go, or 2 or 3 units spread out over 2 turns, you're going to win the game because everything's going to be dead.
Which is probably why it should cost at least 40 points more.
Yeah.
Yep.
But how does it compare to a Katusha?
A Katusha's like 64 points inexperienced, so you're basically paying an extra 20 points to make it a 6+ vehicle rather than an artillery piece. Which the key point isn't that it's a 6+, it's that the Katusha can move and fire. That's the key bit. But that's going off into the rushes.
You can just shoot with one rifle shot and it can die to that.
Yeah.
So.
Right. Anyway, other artillery piece options. They've got lots of
the 88.
Well, shall we go with the 88?
They got a lot of flak pieces, and just to lead you into the 88. The flak 38s and the 36 are actually pretty good because they're all on rotating platforms. Very, very useful. However, the one that everybody looks at, and let's be honest, it's the most fun, is the 88.
So what does the rotating platform do, Pete, just for those that don't know?
I mean, you can turn and shoot with the buggers, that's the problem.
So basically...
I can't hide from them, basically.
Basically,
that's a turret, doesn't it?
Yeah, it has a 360-degree line of sight. You can basically move it with an advance order to fire at at a different target and not suffer the -1 to hit. Which means there's nowhere to hide. It has no problems just swinging around and shooting you. So it's 160 points for a super heavy AT gun, which can also fire as a medium howitzer. So it's very versatile. It's medium. Medium.
Oh, it's medium.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's a big gun. 7 crew members. 7. So it's going to stick around a fair bit, and you can buy it a spotter. For 10 points, and it has the flak rule. In case your opponent actually brought an anti-aircraft and forward air observer, you can shoot it down on the way in, which is always fun if you're good at rolling 5s. So the thing I love most about the 88, other than it being stupidly iconic, and being able to go through a tank like it's paper, is the fact it has 7 crew members. That is so many crew, which also means, because a rule not many people use is that if you have multiple artillery pieces near each other, you can swap crew. On your fire order, so you can keep them all alive. If you've got one gun down to 1 crew, but the other one crew member, but the other one's got 7, you can swap crew and balance it out to keep them 4 or 5. So if you do what I do and have an entire battery of 88s, or 3 of them because I love them so much, you can keep swapping crew till the cows come home. So it's really cool just to keep them alive, and it really frustrates your opponent when it's just like, oh yeah, I'm still here, don't worry, I know you killed them all, but I'm back, it's all cool. But they are 160 points
quite
each.
cheeky things as well. Like if you wanted to take a double platoon with an 88 in one of the platoons and a Nebelwerfer in the other, if they start shooting the Nebelwerfer and finally get rid of it, just pop one of your 7 crew members across and recrew it. Oh look, it can fire again.
The only problem is to do that, you're spending 160 points on that 88, and then you need to buy a tow as well because it's a heavy gun. So it's a lot of points for such a combo. Yeah, but
that is stupid. They need to fix that.
But if you wanted to narrow down the German army to like a single iconic unit, I don't think you can go wrong with the 88. It is, especially now there's a plastic kit for it. It is so good. It's so cool, so themey. I think it's expensive for what it does. 160 points is a lot of points for just a stationary gun, especially because once
platform, I think good.
No, I could say I'm going to disagree with you. I think 160 points is excellent when compared to other vehicles. If you're and other guns, I think if you're comparing it to just other available anti-tank assets, the trouble is you're basically comparing it to Panzerfausts, and as we've already discussed, it's going to lose every time. But for 160 points, you're getting I mean, how much is a super heavy AT gun not on a rotated platform? Basic
140.
Yeah, 140, and you're getting a medium howitzer. You're getting 3 extra crew. You're getting a rotating platform. It's a blooming bargain, Toe.
My main problem with it is that it's mortar bait. Because it's a super heavy gun, it can never move. Once that mortar started ranging in, you're never going to move. It's just there forever. And it's the same weakness as my heavy howitzers have, which, you know, luckily in my gaming career, people haven't really picked up on, but it's a bloody glaring weakness, which is because they can never move. Once you start ranging in with your mortar, the end is coming. It does, you know, at some point you're going to get that 6, or you're going to get that 2 if you've been firing long enough. You're going to hit them all, and because it's an artillery piece, you're going to hit every single bloody crewman with a single mortar shot and murderize all of them. And that's a 50-point unit being quite the heavy counter to a 160-point unit. And a canny opponent will just hide until they manage to do that. Which is just, you know, it's fair tactical play, but I love taking 88. Whether they're game winning, probably not, but they're so much fun.
I think your tendency to think of them.
Taking multiple 88s.
Yeah, I was going to say that's exactly what I was going to say. I think that the reason you see them as overpriced is because you're used to taking them in 3s. At which point they are half your list.
It's known as the pack line. It was a thing. Rommel was a genius. Fuck off. I'm creating his historical nature by bringing my 88s in a line. You're breaking the historical nature by not sending 2,000 points worth of tanks at me. That's where you come in, and that's your fault, sir.
So what you do is you set your 3 88s up, you put your first LT in the middle, you snap them all on ambush with the first dice, and you watch your opponent panic.
Well, you'll get away with it once, and your opponent will hate you that one game, and then they'll go away from that game going, oh, he's a bastard, he brought 3 88s, blah, 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 until he realises that you spent over 500 points on that combination, and it was a waste of time. But, you know, people, 88s are cool, 88s are fun. Any other artillery pieces? As I say, you've got guns for days, you're a German army, you've got light guns, medium guns, heavy guns. I wouldn't really ever bother with a stationary AT gun other than an 88. I just wouldn't, it's just not worth it, really. I'd take a medium howitzer. It's a bit more flexible. I'd say that about any army.
One thing that is worth mentioning is, well, almost worth mentioning, the aircraft guns are all on rotating platforms. So they're all quite mobile in terms of their lines of sight. That's one half decent thing about them.
Especially when you take the flak veiling, which has 4 light autocannons glued together.
Yeah.
That thing is so
for 135 points. It's 8 autocannon shots. Will shred anything it hits.
Yeah.
So that's definitely something to watch out for. If your list is struggling in its anti-infantry capabilities, which maybe, who knows, but it just, especially all the current Western Desert books you see, where everyone's running around with their SAS jeeps and their trucks and their LRDG rubbish, and you just go, by the way, what, 8 light autocannons to the face, skadoosh.
There's also something that could be said for the Panzerfaust, for the little light AT gun that's squeeze bore. Because you can put that on some weird things. And so it doesn't really get much of a look in because normally you're playing with better things. But if you're really trying to save points, you can put one on like a 221. No, not 221, a 223 on one of the light recce 7+ armoured cars. And basically that's an AT gun, which is why I'm mentioning it now.
That's probably a really good option in early war lists when the Panzerfaust isn't an option.
Yeah. But basically it gets you, if you're within 12, you get a +6 penetration off a light AT gun.
It's 50 points. That's
40,
10
isn't it?
Panzerfaust.
No, but
it isn't
for like early war stuff. You know, if you're playing like 1942 before the Panzerfausts were there, you know, it's a pretty good option. Then that's when you go. Actually, I'm playing to a theme. I'm leaving the Panzerfaust at home. What else can I take? Panzerboost is a good shot, really.
It's the only other thing that's of mention. Nothing else is really worth it.
Cool. Gonna say, shall we take a quick break before we go to vehicles? Because we have been talking about an hour.
Please.
Okay. Right, so the next section is vehicles. So, what vehicles options do the Germans have? Now, this could potentially be the biggest section, just because of how ridiculous the Germans were at creating new vehicles and slapping an SDKZ number on it. So, I think as before, we're just going to pick out key ones and just discuss them and gloss over kind of the ones which we'd either say are a bit samey or the ones that are just not really worthwhile or not really worth discussion. If we've missed your favourite, I'm really sorry. So yeah, let's start with armoured cars, and I think I'm just going to start by the sheer number of vehicles that the Germans have that are 7+, with a turret-mounted light autocannon, coax MMG, and the open-topped rule with Recce. I've been looking through the book. I must count at least about 8 vehicles with this designation here, and they're all basically the same. You got some wheeled ones, some half-track ones, but essentially it's your standard armoured car. Everyone has access to it. The Germans' only real difference is that theirs has a +1 shot on the machine gun. Anything else to add?
No.
No, they're all the same.
Yeah.
They're very safe. That's what I find with it.
I don't think they're a particularly bad option. It's 100. They're normally about 100 points. I mean, the 222 is the iconic one. The armored car, and it does what it does. It runs around, it light autocannon stuff, and machine guns it in the face. It's an armored car.
There is one small difference between a couple of them. Is some of them get dual directional recce, which means you can reverse at full speed when you recce out the way. That's about the only difference, really.
Some have the flak rule as well, so they can potentially shoot down incoming aircraft.
Yeah, but basically there's 2 types that fit into the category type set, just to make a really easy subdivision. There's the light ones and the heavy ones. So basically all the light ones start 2-2, and they are basically flak, MMG, light autocannon, recce. And then there are the heavy ones that start 2-3, and they are also 7+, recce, but they can have some slightly better weapon options, so they can take light howitzers and things like that. So basically they're the same in game terms, but the actual history-wise they're double the size of each other, but they get a few different weapon variations, so you can get a bit more support weaponry on the
I think from a German perspective, there's not much really to say about them in that they do what they say on the tin. If you want an armoured car with a light howitzer, there's an armoured car with a light howitzer. Many armies have access to that sort of thing. I think the thing the Germans bring to the table is that there's just so much option. If you want an armoured car to do a specific role, you'll be able to find it somewhere in a book or a campaign supplement. Somewhere the Germans built it, you can find it. If you want an armoured car to fulfil an anti-tank role, if you want an armoured car to fulfil an anti-infantry role, if you want an armoured car just to run around being annoying, the Germans do it.
Yeah.
So, shall we go around talking about each pick one? Because there are a couple of standouts. There are a couple of ones which don't fit that mould. And I'm going to start with my favourite, the motorcycle with machine gun sidecar. The best armoured car in the game.
You mean why the MMG should never be taken?
This is also known as the death of the MMG, or the BMW R75, for those who are a bit more well knowledgeable than me. So what this is it's a 6+ soft skin with a single MMG covering the front arc. It has the recce rule, and it has turn on the spot, which basically means is you don't need to reverse on it. If you want to reverse, you can do a full 180-degree turn for free, and then just run in the other direction. So it's really quick as well. It can get across the battlefield in no time at all, and it's 40 points.
It's horrifically cheap.
40 points. It is so cheap. A platoon of 5 of them doesn't even barely touches 200 points. You only need to pay a bit more for the command one. Done. It's so brilliant. And the problem with this armoured car, recce vehicle, is that it's actually 10 points cheaper than a machine gun team. Why would you ever take a machine gun team when this is a 6+ vehicle which can move 12 inches and still fire? Why? Why?
And that has recce, and that can't be one shot.
And these little things are brilliant. If you're just going, I'm in a bind, I need to get a pin over there, move your machine gun bike over, is brilliant. And these things are so useful in just being able to be in the right place at the right time, especially when you're playing Demolition Sheffield. Would you like to tell the story, or shall I?
So Demolition, I'd forgotten quite how far these things could move, and Topher just waited until turn 2 and immediately pounced my objective and destroyed it because I hadn't defended it well enough. And oh my goodness, you only need to learn that lesson once.
The trick to these is because they're so quick and nimble, it does not take you long to get to any side of the battlefield. And in this particular scenario, because obviously Demolition, the game ends once any unit's in base contact with it. So all I did was make sure my bike was within 2 foot of the objective, and then just let him shoot it, and I wrecked onto it and won the game. It's as simple as that. Wrecked onto it, yeah. So these units are just, I think, 40 points for an MMG on a bike. It sounds ridiculous in that it's just cheap.
Because it is.
is brilliant. They are just so cheap, and there's so much use. I think they're very similar. If you like taking your your MMG Jeeps, for like your Kuba wagon with a machine gun, your White Willys Jeep with a machine gun on it, these things are so much better just for that recce rule as well, which just really knocks them out of the park. They are brilliant units.
One of the things the Germans suffer from is a lack of access to free stuff. But actually, if you're taking things like this, you don't miss it quite so much because really you're paying a third of the points that you should be.
This comes back to my previous point where the points are a bit squiffy because they don't make you pay enough for your light machine guns. This unit should at least be 60, probably even 70. In terms of how good it is, but it's not, and it's great. So there we go. Any other armored cars?
Yeah, I'm going to go. I think the Puma needs a mention because it's the one that you most commonly see. People go, "Ooh, look at that! It's a medium anti-tank gun, and it's an 8+ light tank that fits in my armored car slot." And so you see quite a few of them. And on the face of it, you look at it and you go, "It's all right. It's a light tank with a medium machine gun, and recce. Basically, it's a Panzer III with recce." But it's 160 points, and given how easy it is to destroy it, I just don't think it's worth that.
I think you definitely don't see as many this edition, since last edition when recce was king, and you could move it, fire it, and then still recce away. That was when you saw Pumas everywhere. Now it's a bit come down a much. They rule of cool. They look really cool, and it's a nice fun unit. But I just think 160 points. All you're paying for is a medium AT gun and a coax machine gun. It comes back to the Panzerfaust argument. It's a late war vehicle. There's just when you could take 4 machine gun bikes for the same price as the Puma. It's just not worth it. But it is good to get another tank level vehicle in a single platoon without having to double up if you're trying to go quite armored heavy.
Yeah, it's cool, but it's the only other thing that stands out to me, at least, other than the stupid motorcycle.
One final point about the Puma is because it's 8+, that means by bolt action standards, it's classed as a light tank, which means you can ram people with it.
Yeah.
I hadn't realised that. I take it all back.
So all you need to do is if you're not in the right position to ram someone next turn, don't activate, let someone shoot you, recce yourself to get it all lined up. And then next turn, go to town on that bad boy, and no one will see it coming.
So I'm gonna get you by a technicality, and pull a mention for the Kuba wagon with its MMG.
Yeah.
Yeah, 36 points for a 360-degree MMG. Not bad.
So that's basically the same as a machine gun bike, but without the recce, then, isn't it?
Yeah.
But if Warlord FAQ it, as they properly should, in Western Desert, you can take them as a mini platoon. So you can take 5 Kuba wagons with MMGs. And under that situation, they do have recce, or at least they have recon vehicle, which isn't defined. I mean, easy armies just jumped the shark and said, "Oh, it's recce," and lists it all as recce. But that's not technically what it has. It has a rule that doesn't exist. But you can basically take 5 for a single armored car slot under Western Desert.
I think that would be a good unit if the machine gun bike didn't exist.
Yeah.
Because for 4 points, I'd rather get the bike with recce. But yeah, it's not. That doesn't mean it's a bad unit. It does the same thing. It's great at just going, here's a machine gun in the right place when I need it, for a relatively cheap price and extra dice in the bag.
The bike recce is better as well because it's got turn on the spot recce.
Anything else?
No, all the armoured cars are very samey.
Okay, let's go on to tanks then. So tanks is the bit we've all been waiting for, really. It's freaking Germany. That's what the Germans know for is tanks. And once again, there are so many different tanks. I think there's like at least 30, 40 different options you can take in this main book alone. That's before we even started getting into the various campaign books. So again, let's not go too far deeply into it, other than to say there's a tank for every situation. And the bigger ones have Tiger Fear, probably not worth it. And obviously, each time they've got a medium machine gun, it goes up by an extra shot. Yeah. So, the big, although most German tanks, because they were fairly modern by their standard, only have maybe 1 or 2 machine guns. So they have a hull and a coax. There's a couple with have extra machine gun shots, but for the most part, you're only getting 1 or 2 extra shots, which makes big difference for the low point tanks. But for the bigger tanks, it's not really a big issue. So, rather than, I think for this one, would it be better if we just talk about what various things you'd want your tank to do, and then talk about the best options for said tank? Does that sound good?
Possibly. I'd like to put forward something that I don't think should be a tank, but I see why it's a tank. It's 3 units. It's the Panzerwerfer Renault and the Stuckers of Fuss. I see why they're tanks. Movable multiple rocket launchers are really, really good. But
Well, they're not so much tanks as just taking the tank slot. They're kind of self-propelled artillery, aren't they?
yeah, they're more of a no. You can't have your tank.
Yeah, we'll get back to them when we cover that section. So let's go for the first class of tank. We'll call the MMG tank. So this would be one where something like a Stuart, where you're just taking your tank just to get a load of shots on a single tank, just to try and blat some infantry. What sort of tanks would you take from the German book if you just wanted an anti-infantry tank, let's say?
I'll go first. You take the Panzer II Lynx, the NSFW. I think it's Lux. So basically, Lux. So it's 115 points at regular. You get a turret, light autocannon, and coax MMG. You don't get a hull MMG, but you're getting an 8+ light tank that has recce. So this is the Stuart of the. It doesn't have quite as many MMGs, but you have
quite as many. It only has 6 shots and not 17.
That's not the Stuart.
But you have a little 8+ tank that's cheap, and so if you compare it to an armored car, basically you're getting the extra damage value point, and for about 10 points, basically, it's an armored car with the value of a light tank, and I think that's well up for it. They're tiny.
I also
recce
think
things.
the Lush is known as like the most favourite tank in terms of looks.
Oh yeah, it's cute as anything.
I think you missed one there. I think you went a little too high with that Panzer rating. The Panzer 1, fantastic MMG team.
Yeah, I think the Panzer 1 is definitely one of the top ones in terms of just pure infantry dagger. It's a 7+ fully enclosed tank. There's not much to say about it, except it's got a turret with 2 MMGs on it. So for 70 points, you've got 12 machine gun shots on a nice tank. And you know what? For what it does, that's nice and cheap. That's really good. Especially if you take a platoon of 5 of them for 350 odd points plus command. Is really cheap. If you just need some machine, if you've got 70 points at the end of your list is nothing really. Stick a Panzer 1 in there. Go for it.
I don't know. It's not got recce.
If you think about American lists, you take Stuarts because they pump out so many machine guns. In Soviets and Finnish, you take the little T-26Bs because they do exactly this with 10 shots. So there is no reason not to take this tank.
I think for every Stuart, the price of a Stuart, you can have 2 Panzer 1s.
Yeah.
Which is 2 dice and like more shots. So the Panzer 1 is brilliant. I also think for infantry blatting, a Stug 42. So it's just a 9+ tank with a medium front-mounted hull. Medium howitzer and a 360-degree line of sight machine gun on the top. Brilliant. 190 odd points. Can't go wrong. Drive up to stuff. Fire a medium howitzer at it.
Speaking as an American that takes gyro stabilized howitzers on my Shermans, they are fucking awesome.
I think when you're building an all-round list, I think a medium howitzer is almost always a better investment than an anti-tank gun, simply because you can still put pins on the tank, you can still kill it if you get a flank or rear shot, and you're going to put pins on it, and arguably pins are better than trying to kill it anyway, because pins are easier. So a Stug 42 will do 80% of what you want an anti-tank tank to do. So you can pin it with your Stug until your Panzerfaust moved in, and then just go and blat some infantry.
Yeah,
I agree. The Stug's a great one.
And if you feel like taking steroids, if you're really ready to get big and strong and buff, you can take you can get your Stug 42, give it some beefcake and take a Brumbar.
Oh, I thought you were going to say, yeah,
A Stug 33B.
yeah.
No. Why are we going like full steroids and like pumped full of every sort of thing? Take a Sturm Tiger.
Because our dear listeners don't need to know. Okay,
No, you're right.
So the Brumbar is a heavy tank with a heavy howitzer, and a Sturm Tiger is a super heavy tank with a stupidly even heavier howitzer, which is 500 points and a waste of time. A Brumbar is 300 odd points.
Yeah,
for
310.
310 for a heavy tank with a heavy howitzer. Well, that's pushing. It's quite expensive. Oh, I love me a heavy howitzer, as you might know, dear listener. So I think the Brumbar's a good choice as well. Finally, for infantry blatting, it's quite famous actually. Does someone else want to take it off me if I just say the?
Are you on about the Lorraine Schlepper?
No.
No, that is a good one, which is like a
With a medium howitzer attached, that's really good.
the Lorraine Shepherd. It's a 7+ vehicle with just a medium howitzer on it, open topped for about 115 points, which is really cheap. It's
The
like
thing that makes that good is it can move. So you're basically paying 40 points compared to a normal medium howitzer because it's on tracks.
and you can't kill it with rifles. You need an
Yeah.
actual
Worked out
anti-tank
what
thing.
Well, it is
I've just
open
worked out
top,
what you're
so
talking
you
about.
can pin it out of the game with rifles.
I was going to say,
I just worked out.
I was going to say, Sheffield, I've just brought you a Lorraine Schlepper from Warlord.
Ah, yeah, they're wonderful. No, I've just twigged what the thing is that you're talking about. The thing that we've missed. It's the Whirlwind.
It was the Whirlwind. Congratulations, I was rudely interrupted. Yeah, so this is the famous anti-air vehicle, which is basically it's the unholy matrimony of a Panzer IV with the turret taken off, and then the 8-shot light autocannon added instead.
Just because it can, right?
Just because it can. So basically, what you do with this is you spend your 235 odd points. You drive up to your opponent's most favourite veteran infantry, where they spent 25 points and everyone because they gave them more veteran assault rifles with Fanatic, and you just absolutely destroy it with 8 light automatic cannon shots. And it tell you what, it's open top, so you can pin it easily. But when that gets you in the open,
It was. I think it was my Soviets that felt the full force of yours.
To give the listeners an idea of ideal situations, you know all those spear fighters you really hate? The spear fighters,
the Japanese
really,
spear fighters, yeah.
Just, here's a Whirlwind, go away.
Daka. So just combine all of everything we hate about the flak veiling we spoke about earlier, and just combine that with a 9+ tank, just to make it nigh on impossible without dedicated anti-tank. Sure, you can pin it, but it's only one rally away from absolutely screwing you over again. Ooh, it's good. I mean, it's 235 points. You're paying a decent amount for it. I'd say it's a fair amount. It's a fair point value you're paying for it. But it's not nice to be on the receiving end.
If you're a good player that can keep vehicles safe, the Opal Blitz with the 4 light autocannons can do the same job for about 100 points less.
So that's the 6+ armored, 6+ soft skin version.
It is the soft skin version. You can make it fully enclosed. You can make it fully armored 7+ for an extra 30, so it becomes 70 points cheaper. But you need to be able to keep it safe because it is that little bit more vulnerable.
I'd say a Whirlwind's better for a newbie player, someone who's not as experienced.
Yeah,
just simply because you got that 9+.
Yeah, if you want to learn, start with the Whirlwind. Once you get good at hiding it and protecting it, you downgrade it to an Opal Blitz.
Oh yeah, the one more I've just noticed it. It's just at the bottom of that one. There weren't many of them made. The Kugel Blitz looks like a decent shot.
Which one's that?
9+ medium tank, 2 turret heavy autocannon, 1 forward-facing hull mount MMG, 205 points reg.
Oh, that's a good shout. Isn't that one of those paper tigers? Did they actually ever make it?
Yeah, they did. I think the Kugel Blitz was
manufactured up to 6.
Up to 6.
Yeah, but they're heavy autocannons, which are one of those weapons that are used so infrequently. I'd actually have to look it up.
I also like that. It's actually fully enclosed as well, so you wouldn't be able to pin it out, which is arguably a lot scarier. And because they're heavy autocannons,
5 points is a very good beginner tank.
And when heavy autocannons have a 72-inch range, it's going to be quite accurate simply because you're not going to have the minuses for long range all that often.
And it's got a +3 pen as well.
And I do know you can buy a Kugel Blitz turret from here 46. Note that down, guys. They will sell you just the turret. So if you've got like a Panzer IV bottom, you've already got that. All you need to do is order the turret separately, paint it up, bish by plush. You've got 2 tanks for the price of 1. Or at least the price of 1 plus a turret from another supplier. So that's probably a
order turret.
Yeah. Add one to me as well. Put one in the basket for me. So right, all-rounder tanks. So a tank where you need it to do a bit of everything.
I'll start that just by repeating what we've already said. I'd put the Stu 42 in there. The forward-facing medium howitzer and an MMG.
Okay.
I think that medium howitzers can really annoy anything short of a heavy tank, and so it can do both. Yeah, it's infantry blat, but it'll blat a tank if you point it in the right direction.
I'm going to go with one of my favourite tanks, which is actually quite the unsung hero. I don't think many people appreciate it, which is the early war Panzer III. So it's 135 points for a regular one, 8+ light tank with a light AT gun, a coax MMG, and a hull MMG. How dinky is that? 135 points. It's got 12 machine gun shots. It's got your light AT gun in case you get some decent on, a tank to go up against. In a competitive environment, nobody really invests the points in really big tanks, so a light will do you. You don't really. The points for mediums and heavies are a bit of a sunk cost fallacy. You don't get your points back. You can get 3 of them in a platoon for 500 points if you're going fully armoured. I just really, really dig the Panzer III.
Yeah, you see, I'm one of those guys with my Germans. Yeah, give me a late war Panzer IV. I'm going to throw it in your face. I don't expect it to kill anything. I expect it to annoy you.
Certainly, we've talked about it enough. The Panzer IV is brilliant, but it's not going to be it's not going to be doing all of your anti-tank work for you, because that's what your Panzerfaust are for. It's there to give you Tiger fear. But actually, because I agree completely with Topher, I think actually the Panzer IIIs for your points are better options. And I would rather have I don't agree with Topher. I think the mid-war Panzer III, the G, is the better one. The one that's it's still the 8+ light tank, but it's the medium AT gun for 150 points. I think that's a better choice than the earlier war one. But it depends on what you're fighting against. I'd rather have the medium. I think the heavy and the super heavy are a bit unnecessary. The medium's more than sufficient. Yeah. But it could go either way. It's not wrong to like the earlier ones. My personal preference is the mid-war Panzer III.
And there's a lot of options in between. As I say, with the Germans, there is a tank for every capability. If you want a heavy tank with a light gun or a light tank with a heavy gun, there'll be something out there for you. But I think
the cost step. It's the cost step. Normally, the cost of the gun is really significant. To go from the light to a medium is only 20 points. That's it.
Yeah,
and that's worth every one of those.
See, just to mention here, it's the 2519. That's actually quite annoying to play against.
So is that's the 25?
The Stummel. The Stummel with the transport capacity. It's so annoying.
Okay, so what is that talking? Is that like a half-track based variant?
Yeah, it's a half-track variant that's in the tank slot. Can transport, but is a tank. If it's empty and you walk up to it, it just stays there.
Okay.
I think that the best thing about it is that actually it's also a tow. So there's some quite good stuff you can do with it. It's really versatile.
So it's basically a light howitzer on a 7+ half-track chassis, which also just happens to have capacity to start helping you out in a dodgy situation, or save yourself some points if you're building a tank platoon.
Yeah, and it screams tank platoon to me.
That's definitely an interesting option. It's definitely an option no one else really has.
Yeah, it's basically a 231, the armoured car that we talked about earlier, but it drops recce in favour of transport capacity. It's similar points. It's the same armour value. It's got a light howitzer.
That's a fair shout. Right, shall we go on to the favourite bit of all German players, and that's heavy tanks. So let me preface to saying we know they're bad options. This is bolt action. It's the same for every army. Unfortunately, heavy tanks just don't pull their weight because they're too expensive, because the points focus far too many points on the armour and the gun and not enough on like the machine guns and stuff. However, if someone pointed a gun to your head and said, right, you need to take a heavy tank, what are you going to do? Or if you're just turning up to a nice fun game and you want to go, cool, which tank's fun to use, which heavy tank would you go with? Unless you want to go into more detail about why they're bad. Do you feel we need to cover that?
Do I have to own it?
No.
If I don't have to own it, and I could go out and buy a Sturm Tiger, because that would be bloody fun.
So why wouldn't you go out and buy one then? Why do you not have a Sturm Tiger?
I wouldn't use it that much, to be honest.
500 points. 500 points for a single unit. You're basically playing half points down. Yeah. So the heavy howitzer it's 4d6, isn't it, rather than 3d6? Is what you get for being a Sturm Tiger?
You cannot fire to long range, and it inflicts 4d6 hits on buildings, so you can just drop that building no problem, and you can reroll all dice that fail to score damage for the blast.
Ooh. So if you do hit with your 500 point unit, you'll definitely destroy something. Personally, although I've spent this entire episode slagging it off, I do love a Tiger. I love my Tiger so much. It is so stupidly bad, and yet on a Wednesday night when I'm fucking about in the garage, it is so much fun to bring it out and just watch it, just try and kill stuff. and fail horrendously. So with the Tiger, I love taking it. It's so stupid and it's so obtuse, and it really rarely does what it's supposed to. But when it shines, it really makes you smile, because the little dude tried. He tried so hard, and he actually killed that tank, which was half the points of him, and he did really well doing it.
But would you ever Yag Tiger?
No. What I would say though with a Tiger is that always take the pintle machine gun, because once you've already spent 450 points on a tank, that extra 15 points just for a bit of utility, you might as well. Also, I would always recommend to take one of the late war platoon selectors and take it fuel shortage. So,
But you know when you want to take your pintle machine gun,
yeah,
that makes you open topped when you fire it.
but you don't need to fire it, but it's there
No,
as
you
an
don't.
option.
Yeah, I suppose, but it would be silly to shoot it first turn of the game and then you get pinned out of the game.
Of course it would.
Right.
But if you manage to save your Tiger dice until the end of the turn and no one else can shoot back, and you need to spread some pins out, it's there. You've already spent 450 bloody points on the tank. What's 15 points more?
Yeah.
Once you've knocked out the opponent's tank, which as your Tiger you're going to do before the game even begins, come on.
Yeah.
It's good to have. But what I was say with fuel shortage, so the late war selectors provide fuel shortage as an option, which is basically rules along the lines of your tank's 10% cheaper. So for a Tiger, you're going to save yourself 44 points, which is that's a fair crack. That's not an insignificant amount. And in doing so, you simply have to roll the dice at the end of every turn, at the end of every one of your activations. And if you roll the 1, bad things happen, and your clutch goes, you run out of fuel, and your tank immobilizes itself. But A, that's fun as fuck. You're already taking a Tiger. Why wouldn't you increase the fun? And 2, that extra 10% goes such a long way. Those 44 points saved into actually helping the rest of your list out for the fact it's had to take a Tiger. And finally, 1250 points I think is the right nice number where suddenly taking a Tiger won't suddenly gank the rest of your list. I think 1250 points is the point level you can start to actually say, you know what, I can take a Tiger, I can do it. And you go, my friend, you go, because I love taking a Tiger. I just wish it was better than it was.
I do quite love. I know it's not a heavy tank, but I do quite the Panther.
Well, it's just a light Tiger.
Yeah, it's a Tiger Light, and it's good at what it does.
So is it 100 points cheaper than a normal Tiger?
Yeah, more or less.
And so what do we get for those 100 points? Basically, just it's a medium rather than a heavy, except it's still a heavy on the front.
Yeah.
So basically, it's like a Sherman in that it's got +1 on the sides for a heavy tank.
A Panther is only 40 points cheaper than a Tiger. Yeah.
Well, the Tiger one is
it's
Panther, 395. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah,
you're
Panther is 355. Yeah.
So would you pay 40 points to upgrade your Panther to a Tiger, or would you happily stay with a Panther?
I would stay with a Panther.
As would I.
Nah, man, you gotta go Tiger. Tiger all the way.
I would then paint the Panther black and say it's from Conda.
Yeah. I like the Panther. I think it's the best balance between the Panzer IV for points efficiency and the Panzer VI Tiger for rule of cool. So if you want something that's cool but not stupid points, I'd take the Panther. I
would again say take the Panther. If you're trying to save some points, take the Panther, make it fuel shortage, and then it's not actually that far off a Panzer IV at that point. You're about 320 at that point, which isn't too bad.
I took a Jagd Panther to Cambridge, and that did rather well because people just weren't sure how to deal with it. No one had come to that tournament expecting to face any armor 10 plus tanks, and so I was quite safe with it. I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it's very competitive, but if you know how to use that tank well and can get away with it, then there is a place in comp play for the big point sink tank, but you have to hope that you get a bit lucky.
Didn't the last game
not this again.
Useless.
We know, let's not go through it again. One thing I will say though is you see this every so often. You'll go to a tournament and there'll be that guy who's brought the Tiger and he's like, I know it's crap, but I've got my Tiger, I love my Tiger, and he just guitar solos and he's having a great time and he's loving it. And then you see him and that Tiger never leaves his deployment zone because he just sits there and fires with it every turn and never moves it. And you know what? Great that you brought your Tiger, but you might as well have just brought an AT gun. The point of a Tiger is that it's big, it's heavy, and it can freaking move and fire. Get that thing on the road and force it down people's throat. Do not let people hide. Chuck it at them. You're a big heavy tank, you're one of the strongest tanks in the game, freaking use it. If you're going to sit at the back shooting, you might as well just take a Marder or an 88. if you've taken a tiger, act like a tiger. You're the king of the battlefield. Fucking go for it. Go big or go home. I know. Wasn't it
Not only are you king of the battlefield, you also own the battlefield.
you are the battlefield. I was just like, your last game at the GTP, didn't he have a tiger? And didn't he correctly shove that down your throat?
Yeah, I wasn't very panicked about it at the start. Thinking, oh, here we go, a tiger, what a waste of time. And then he correctly used it and shoved it down my throat, and it was a bit of a problem.
Especially if you've been like us and gone, oh, we're competitive gamers, no one brings heavy tanks, let's just bring light AT guns, and suddenly they've got a 10 plus heavy tank. Oh shit.
My options were charge it with Japanese or die to it. I just chose die to it, apparently.
Yeah. The guy who bought the Ferdinand last year had 2 really good games until he played on a City Fight board.
As I say, I don't think we're saying heavy tanks are if you want to take a heavy tank, let me high five you and shake your hand, you legend of a man. But you definitely got an uphill battle. I think you could definitely win some games. You can definitely do it, but you need to really try hard and get a lot of practice in, because they're not easy to use. And for the love of God, do not sit at the back. I will come over and cry on your table. And even if you say get petty, I will not give you a free widget.
We will, however, bottle up his tears and probably give them.
I'll come over with a tape measure and I'll be like, your tiger is too close to your board edge. I will give you a widget when you move another 6 inches, sir. Right. Any other tanks we missed out? Any ones of note? I think we haven't spoken about the Flamingo yet.
At the flamethrower Panzer II.
So it's an 8 plus Panzer II with a light AT gun, some machine guns, and 2 frickin' vehicle flamethrowers on it, because overkill is a lovely word.
You can only fire one though, yeah.
Is that? I saw in V1 you could fire both. Have they actually nerfed that now? The Flamingo?
You can only fire one, but it means that if that one that you fired runs out of ammunition, you've still got another one that might not.
I mean, it is 130 points regular for 2 flamethrowers and a turret MMG, 8 plus light tank.
And a stupid name.
Yeah, you can also take so the Panzer III. You can replace the light AT gun with a vehicle flamethrower for, I think, similar points. I don't think it's a big difference. And I don't really. What would you think? Is it worth it? Light AT gun or vehicle flamethrower? Which would you go with?
The flamethrower is nice, but you need to be so close.
It's a replacement. It's not one or the other.
Flamethrower.
I wouldn't.
So
I don't like vehicle flamethrower.
So a Flampanzer, so a 9 plus medium tank with a turret-mounted flamethrower and a hull-mounted MG and a coax is 175. The exact same tank with a medium AT gun is 195. So you're effectively 20 points you're basically 20 points up on a light tank gun and 20 points down on a medium tank gun for a vehicle flamethrower. I would say I wouldn't take the vehicle flamethrower. I wouldn't be interested in that. For 2 reasons. The first one is obviously being a vehicle tank means people get a +1 on the damage chart versus you, so it means you're more likely to die.
If you're really bonkers, for the same points as a Panzer IV, you could take the Flampanzer B2. You could take the French version that's slow, has a 1-man turret.
Go away. That was not worth the interruption.
I was
going to say, so the thing with vehicle flamethrowers is they've got a 12-inch range. Which means you're almost always going to be hitting on a 5 if the target's over 6 inches away, which is -1 for moving and -1 for long range. And suddenly, it's just not worth it. You're just gonna if there's a unit right in front, like 7-8 inches away from you, and you move up to fire at them, you're only going to hit a third of the time. So it's just not worth it. You need the vehicle to be so close to the enemy to make it worthwhile. You need to be within 6 inches really, and then you're so close that you're putting yourself at risk from being charged from other enemy Panzerfausts. I just don't. No, not for me. I'm afraid. I don't recommend putting flamethrowers on your vehicles.
The only one I'd take out of the German 25116 Flampanzer.
Oh, is that the half-track version?
Yeah, little armoured carrier, 110 points. It's not much of a.
It's pretty cheap.
Yeah. No, I like the Flampanzer too, but generally speaking, I wouldn't be considering a flamethrower tank in Germany.
Cool. Right. so let's finish tank and let's sort out transports quickly. Let's fly through because we know we're dragging on with this one. So yeah, transports. What one stand out as Germany? I mean, they have a lot of options as they always do, but for the most part, they're all pretty regular. You know, there's a truck, it's a half track, everyone has access to it. Anything that particularly stands out?
Hanamags! They're cool!
They are cool. That's it. They're just cool.
Yeah, they're cool. I mean, they're not fantastic. They're just cool.
I think they're too expensive.
So yeah, the thing with Hanamags is like most things, you need to plan. You need to plan what you're going to do. If you just take a list and then just take 3 Hanamags and go, yeah, that's cool, whatever, it's not going to help you out. Whereas if you build your list specifically around mobility and thinking, I need to get from A to B, here's what I need to do, then you're going to have a lot more mileage with it. I think the thing to remember for Hanamag is, yes, they're 7+ armoured, they've got a lot of machine gun shots on them, but they do cost basically as much as the squad they're carrying.
I was going to say, with the Hanamags, if you were to compare them to the equivalent soft skin 6+ vehicle of the same sort of transport capacity, you could put that squad in that soft skin vehicle and then buy yourself something like a mortar or a sniper to buff your army, which is a lot better than just having that one squad in a 7+ truck.
Okay, here's my problem with Hanamags. I agree with Dan completely. Is that you're a 7+. That's your main defining feature over, let's say, a truck, because a truck has the same transport capacity, can take an MMG, but you're paying for the 7+. You're paying for the infantry protection, and generally speaking, at least this seems to, I think we'd all agree. Generally speaking, you're not moving your troops around on the battlefield in a transport, expecting them to be shot. You're basically getting them to where they need to be and dumping them out as soon as possible, in which case the truck is better 90% of the time. The only exception to that, I think, is the smaller, the shortened Hanamag. Is it the 250? The one that's only got a transport capacity of 6. That's better because
it's only 5.
It's 5.
Yeah.
You're saving the points sufficiently on that. So I think that's the Hanamag you take if you take one. But the other ones, no, I would take a truck in 90%.
I actually, the short Hanamag is the only one I would take, and I've got quite a few of them, and I think they're brilliant for just putting little 5-man death squads in, like a little 5-man squad with full SMGs or something. Like, you don't build your whole list around them, or at least you can do, but you don't need to. If you just have a normal list and then have a little 5-man squad with like maybe 4 SMGs and a flamethrower in that Hanamag, suddenly that's a nice little flanking unit. You know, you can just drive up, jump out, and burn something. And then because the Hanamag's only the short one's only 65 points, that's only 75, and it's only some points more than a normal MMG team. You know, if you compare it to a veteran MMG team, it does the same thing, but with 7+ fully armored, 7+ open topped, and you can carry stuff and move.
But then
fire.
when you're saying that, one of the ones, my favourite is the heavy field car. For a regular heavy field car, it's 27 points. So basically, I can buy a flamethrower as well as the field car for your Hanamag.
Yeah, but that's the same problem That's not a German-centric problem. That's just...
No, but I'm just saying, I just think 7+ armoured car carrier things are not as good as people think.
Yeah. I think I'd put them in the same
but
areas.
They're
like
cool.
They are definitely cool.
Oh, they are. You know, if you could put the flak 36 88mm thing on a Hanamag track, I don't think you could get more German than that. But yeah, they're just not that brilliant.
You can get more German than that. Are you ready for my favourite unit in this entire book?
It's the Schlepper, isn't it?
No, it's not. It is not the Landwehr Schlepper. But by the way,
mad.
It's the Kettenkrad.
Are you Ken?
He's getting mad with this.
I'm a Ketten lad, mate.
Oh.
So the Kettenkrad is a tracked motorbike, which is 6+ soft skin and has a capacity for carrying up to 3 people, and it is 21 points for a regular one.
26 regular.
26
and it's
regular.
a tow.
and it can tow Nebelwerfers around. It is so cool. I think a Jeep is probably better because it can move 2 foot rather than 18 inches. But I don't care. The Kettenkrad looks awesome. It's brilliant.
Yeah, but the Jeep has to go round little bushes and forests and stuff. This thing just goes, fuck it, I'm going through it.
It can go through rough ground as a track vehicle. Yeah, they're so cool. So shout out to the Kettenkrad.
And if you want all of your eggs in one basket, the Landwehr Schlepper is there.
Which is, remind me, is that a 6+ soft skin with a 20-man capacity?
60 points regular, 6+ soft skin, 20 dudes, and it's amphibious.
It's a Gorgon. Is that what the Imperial Guard one was called?
The Landwehr Schlepper is when you've got to pay the tax of having an armoured platoon and you want to put and you have to mount up all your infantry. You buy a Landwehr Schlepper for 48 points in experience, and you go, well, that's me done, and then just buy whatever the fuck you want.
Have you actually looked at it? Have you seen a picture of it? It's actually a boat. It is just a
Yeah.
boat with wheels. It's ridiculous.
It's not a boat, it's a land vessel schlepper.
That's just fun to say. Landwäscherschlepper. Yeah, that's just a funny unit. I can't really think of many ways. I think it might be fun to put like 3 engineer squads in it and then outflank it and then just jump on and be like, ha ha! But I think it's very gimmicky.
I've just Googled it. Did any of you see that Top Gear special where they cross the channel?
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's the thing Richard Hammond built.
Right, so for the final part, let's put all of this together. And so what we've all done is we've each come up with some lists of taking everything we've discussed and how we would build a list using all of this information. So rather than putting the list out and then slagging each other off over taking the wrong thing, we're just going to present our list and just leave it to you, the listener. So if you guys want to let us know which one your favourite is, which one you'd like to use, or ask us how we would tone any of them up, or tone any of them down for various uses, we'll let you know. But following on from the Christmas theme, even though it's getting pretty late now because we're really unorganised, we're going to see who's naughty and nice. So we've got 2 nice lists, which you just take to play with your gran on a Sunday, and 2 absolutely awful lists you'd go and burn the world down with and get yourself a reputation on the internet for being an absolute cunt. So, who's gone with what? Who's who?
I'm a naughty boy.
Of course you are.
I'm a nice boy.
I'm a naughty boy.
And I'll have you know, internet, the devil of bolt action has done a nice list.
We thought it best to let him do that.
I'll do a nice list for once.
His nice list is still worse than the best of ours.
You, sir, are a cur. Right, let's go. So, who wants to start off? We'll go naughty, nice, and then we'll end on a high.
Do you want me to go first?
Yeah, go on then, Dan.
Okay, so mine is double platoon, just double generic platoon. It is almost themed around the defence of Italy for Fallschirmjäger Force. So just bear that in mind. So first platoon, second lieutenant with a dude, both got assault rifles because they're free. Then the next bit is 2 6-man Fallschirmjäger squads. Both have 3 SMGs. Both have 2 Fausts. Then there's an 8-man Fallschirmjäger squad, just rifles, nothing special. Then there's a veteran flamethrower in a Kubelwagen, 2 heavy field cars, and they are both for the 6-man Fallschirmjäger squads. Then I've got an inexperienced Nebelwerfer. Then Topher's favourite unit, the BMW R75 bike.
Woohoo!
Just regular with that one. A Panzer III with the light AT gun and the MMG on the hull. And then the best unit in the game for points value, an inexperienced mule. Second platoon is a second LT, again, with a regular man and assault rifles, because they're free. 6 Ostruppen, which are the inexperienced Shirker squads. And I have 2 units of them. They are basically my tax for taking the second platoon. Another flamethrower in a Kubelwagen. This one is an Eintoss version, just because I want the one Kubelwagen to drive up, flame 2 units, and then who cares what happens? Everything's dead anyway. Then a second inexperienced Nebelwerfer and a second inexperienced mule. So this is a 19 dice list, which is quite hard to get for Germans because a lot of it is quite expensive. The 2 mules are simply there. They don't have to tow the Nebelwerfers because they can move. They are simply there as an 8.2 dice bonus for the army because I had 8 points spare at the end of it. So the idea behind this is both flamethrowers in Kubelwagens, both 6-man Fallschirmjäger squads in heavy field cars. Just bum rush the opponent as fast as you can, get in their faces, start throwing SMGs about, start throwing flamethrowers about, and just watch everything melt away, really. Everything else is there as support. So your Panzer III, your BMW bike, your other 8-man Fallschirmjäger squad, it just moves around the battlefield as it's needed. Put pins on whatever you can. If possible, use them to clean up small squads and bits that are left over that might threaten any objectives or whatever the mission is. The 2 6-man Ostruppen squads, they are 24 points a unit. So their only job is to stand on your home base and go down. If you are playing a mission where you have to capture the opponent's base, like in point defense, or if you have to get off the other side of the board, You choose the quietest part of the board and just run like hell. And like I said, they're 24 points, so who cares if they dies? The last things are the Nebelwerfers. I've taken 2 of them because they are 52 points of absolute filth. And the reason you take 2 of them is because you can, and that is it. That is it.
You cheesy bastard.
If there was an option to take 4, I would have done. But unfortunately, I don't have that in this theatre selector or this kind of theme that I was going for. So overall, 19 dice. Only 2 of the dice are really useless in the mules. Even the vehicles have actually got a use to their dice in getting the flamethrowers into the enemy's face as fast as you can. It's got enough AT with the Fausts, the flamethrowers, and the Panzer III. It's got enough anti-infantry with the BMW bike, the Panzer III with its 2 LMGs, the flamethrowers, and the Fallschirmjäger. And it's got enough staying power because most of the infantry is actually veteran. It's only the 2 Oststruppen that are inexperienced, and that was it. So that's my naughty list.
That's incredibly naughty.
That is a good list as well.
Are we going to be fighting that in the garage?
No, because my Fallschirmjäger that I'm actually building as part of the Mr. Blobby's Hobby Lobby are actually a themed list on the Defence of Italy. So for Defence of Italy, you can't take the Panzer III, you can't take flamethrowers, and you can't take Oststruppen. So it will basically just be like 40 Fallschirmjäger and the BMW bike and a Nebelwerfer, and that's it.
Cool. Right, so who wants to go next? So mine's a very, very nice list. It's very friendly. It's very nice. And I've themed mine on the Blitzkrieg in 1940. So it's very early war. I've taken absolutely none of the late war toys because, of course, it's not been themed. And I've been following the Battle of France theatre selector almost to a T. So it's a 12 dice list, and it's basic. It's regular all across the board. So you don't need, except for 1 unit, so you don't need to worry about that. It's a single second lieutenant with buddy. There's 3 here infantry squads. Each one is 10 man with a single LMG. So they're my line infantry squads, just to take objectives, hooker down, fire shots, get into the fight. Your standard unit. And then I've got an 8-man pioneer squad with 6 SMGs, a flamethrower in a truck, and that's my 1 beat stick unit. That's my let's go and find the enemy's nastiest unit and go off on there and burn them out of a bunker or something. Then onto my teams, I have a veteran sniper. 2 medium machine gun teams. Holy shit! Yes, I have taken 2 medium machine gun teams because it's theme fluffy. You can't get German without it. I am. I'm fine. I'm fine. It's fine. I'll get through it. I've got a regular medium mortar team with a spotter. Standard affair. I also, like cheesy McBeardface Dan, have a BMW R75 motorbike with sidecar because. Even I can't help myself. Even when I'm doing themed lists, I can't help myself. I've taken a light Panzer III, as I've discussed earlier. So that's the 8+ light tank, light gun, coax machine gun, and a hull. And that's it. That's 999 points. Themey as fuck, guys. 12 dice.
12.
It's only 12. I mean, there's an awful lot of redundant crap in there. Like machine gun teams and LMGs and the squads are too big, blah 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 blah. But in terms of just rocking up on a club night on Wednesday, that looks really fun. It looks nice and fluffy, nice and themey. I would take that to a campaign day. That looks great. It'd be good.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
I think that's very 1940 Battle of France.
Yeah.
I think it fits. It does what it says on the tin. It's pretty cool. Come on then, Pete. What have you got? Your awfulness.
Well, it's not super awful. It's mostly awful. Got first LT with an assault rifle, no body, because he's got a job to do. The majority of his job is ferry around the next 3 squads, keep them moving. It's the so each squad is a 10-man Hitler Youth squad, SMG on the NTO, and 2 Panzerfausts. They're literally there to just go and get in people's faces. You've then got 9 Volks Grenadiers with 5 assaults, 5 rifles, and a Panzerfaust inside a Hanomag to really get in somebody's face. And then I thought, well, you need something to hold your middle to back end objective, and that's what the 9 late war and SS squad are for. 7 rifles, an assault rifle on the video because he's not Panzerfaust, always useful, and then something a little different, LMG. And yes, I did buy the Fanatics rules. And then the rest of the list is fairly simple. The support units, you've got 2 snipers, 2 howling cows, and then a 222 that just runs around being annoying. It's only 12 dice, but it is 48 infantry, 2 snipers, 2 howling cows.
That's a fair amount of shit.
It's a lot of dudes to get through, especially if they start becoming fanatic regulars rather than just inexperienced.
That's nasty.
It is the dream.
So it's basically the it's the German equivalent of the Soviet big dice list with lots of dudes and lots of guns.
And it gets away with the single platoon on a theatre selector for the extended levy on the 109 of Road to Berlin.
So Sheffield, what have you got to offer as the final friendly list, the nice one, warm and cozy?
I've gone slightly different from everybody else. I've gone for an armoured platoon. So I've gone out to do an armoured platoon of my favourite tank, the Panzer IV. But I've not taken the late war ones with all the stupid guns. So my list is a Panzer IV, that's the tank commander. They're the one with the howitzer, a Type F. And then another Panzer IV. And then a third Panzer IV. This one with the heavy AT gun, an F2 or a G, depending on how you want to be pedantic. So basically a core of the 3 regular German 9-up tanks. And then I've got 2 chutes and squads, 6 men each with an LMG, each one riding in a regular truck. I've got a medium mortar, which rides around in a Kubelwagen, and then an SDKFZ 222, so a recce armoured car, which is 10 dice in an armoured list. It's got 3 tanks, 2 infantry squads, it's all mechanised, and it's got nothing too nasty in it. It's got 1 anti-tank asset in the form of the heavy AT gun on the Panzer IV-G, but it's mainly howitzers and rifles. And I don't know, it's pretty tough. It's going to be hard to manage if you've not got any anti-tank assets of your own, but it's not going to go around stomping on anything.
So as that's an Africa Corps themed list, because you're taking the early war Panzer IVs and the Schutzen, so that the bigger Panzer IV doesn't have Tiger Fear, is that right?
Well, it's difficult to say because Western Desert doesn't really define that. So really, the Panzer IV is an F2 special, but there don't exist rules for that. So really, it's a G, which does have Tiger Fear, but then it doesn't make sense that it would have Tiger Fear. So it's a difficult one because what do you do with that when the rules don't give you the information that you need? So probably if I was taking it to a tournament where people cared, I'd field it as a G and just forgo Tiger Fear, pay 235 points. I haven't got Tiger Fear. It's basically a T-34. Or maybe they'd give me a discount. It's not really clear.
Well, Tiger Fear doesn't have a point association with it, so that would be fine. But yeah, that looks pretty fun to play. I don't feel particularly scared at that at all because you have 12 dudes to catch up objectives with.
Yeah, I'm not really capitalising. Yeah, I'm not really capitalising on the main benefit of the DAC list either, which is that you ignore the long range penalty on anti-tank guns. Which I think if I had taken Panzer IIIs with all the medium AT guns, then just saying, I can ignore the long range modifier, suddenly makes them and their medium AT guns a little bit more dangerous, particularly if they're all hiding on the other side of the battlefield. But it was just an option. You can drop all 4 of the Panzer IVs down to Panzer IIIs and make 2 of them veteran, and you'd get essentially the same list, but that's a little bit more anti-tanky than anti-infantry.
Cool. Right, so those are our lists. As I say, I'd be interested to see what you guys think. As I say, we can let you know how we'll do to tone them down if we were going to take the nasty ones to a themed event, and we can probably do the reverse. And if you like the look of one of those lists, whether it was the DAC one or the Blitzkrieg one, how we'll tone it back up again. It'd be interesting to see what your thoughts are. So, shall we do some Hobby Lobby, and then we can make like a tree and leave. Right, final segment as normal.
Your favourite.
My favourite. You know what, guys? I love our fans, all 2 of you. Hi, Mum, love you. Dan's missus, love you. Everyone. Why will you not give me a better name for Mr. Blobby's fucking Hobby Lobby? Why the hell am I still talking about Mr. fucking Blobby 3 episodes in?
already got the best name.
Guys, can we have some actual feedback on this, please? Even if it's just people telling me I'm wrong, and I can just get over it. But right now, I hate it so much.
Dear Juggernaut,
Anyway.
both you are wrong.
I'm so used to being wrong in my life. Can't I be right about something?
No.
Oh, okay. Well, I'll tell you what I am right about. At least I freaking completed my pledge this month.
Whee!
Just.
Hey, it doesn't matter when I did it. I may have only done it last night, but you know what? I did it. I did what I promised I'd do. Dan, did you do what you promised you'd do?
I went well far and above what I promised to do, mate. So I smashed it out of the park.
What was your pledge? Wasn't it just one test model?
No, well, my pledge was to get all the base colours on my Fallschirmjäger, do one test model fully, and submit my list for Cambridge. I have done all of that, and I have painted every single one of my Fallschirmjäger infantry. So that is 42 models in total. They look absolutely fucking amazing, even by my standards. And that is saying, usually I set out to paint everything amazing, give up halfway through, rush the end of it, and just think, fuck it, that'll do.
I was going to say, your first models are always really pretty.
Yeah.
Your last models look like my anus.
Well, I did a test model. I sent it round the group on our WhatsApp group, and everyone said, "Oh, it's amazing." And Pete said, "If I don't paint the rest of them like that, he's going to introduce a large pole to my anus." So I decided
other orifices are available.
Yeah.
No, from anus to mouth.
Yeah. I figured it was better to be safe than sore and sorry. So I painted them all really well. So when this episode gets edited and put out, what I'll do is I'll put a couple of pictures up on the WhatsApp, on the Facebook group for everyone to see and have a look at.
Cool. Pete, did you manage to do your pledge?
Yes, I did. Did it exactly to the T, and then I got on with Christmas.
I finished exactly to the T as well. I completed my commission and handed them over to my commissioner, who was very happy, and then he gave me a bunch of more shit to paint. Cheers for that, mate. Back to square one. And I also finished building some plastic kits, even if that was only last night. Shut up, who cares? No one's keeping track.
Except we are, because we were monitoring you to make sure you take that right on your next list.
You know what? Behind the curtain, it's on Wednesday night when we was in the guys rolling dice, and I was like, hey guys, you know, I might miss the pledge, but don't worry, it'll only be like 1 or 2 models. And you guys were not going to be very kind. You guys were going to be horrible to me. So I was like, damn, I really didn't. So I just, you know, I didn't even try putting the kids to bed. I just drugged them. You know, I just didn't eat. I told my wife to fuck off, and I sat there looking at my models together. Because that's dedication to make sure I hit my pledge.
Yeah, I bet you're glad I asked for the record to be moved today instead of yesterday.
Yeah, that's true. You know what? Who doesn't have dedication to make sure that they hit their pledge? You know who really should have probably drugged their kids to make sure they had time to do their thing?
I'm guessing you mean me.
Oh, Sheffield! Oh, hi!
I think this is a sort of they're all laughing because I sort of did complete my pledge, just I completed the wrong pledge. I pledged in the Lost record to complete, to build and to paint a platoon of tanks, and then decided that actually that wasn't quite enough, and so I pledged in the record we actually did to finish the minimum for a platoon of men. What I have done is met the original pledge, but not the second one. So I've painted 3 Panzerfaust, but I've also just done some fiddling around, and I've got paint on the rest of the infantry, but I haven't done them. So it depends how nice people want to be. I have built and painted 3 tanks, but I haven't finished painting the things that I technically pledged to do. So how nice do you want to be?
I'm feeling lenient simply because it's my fault that we cocked up the record in the first place, so I feel a share of responsibility. So I'm going to go lenient and not make you take something stupid. I'm going to make you take something which I would utterly hate to take, but I'm sure you won't mind so much. I'm going to say you have to take anti-tank rifle to your next tournament. That's what I'm going to go with.
I was actually going to say, what are you taking to the Imps event, Chef?
I haven't decided. It's not guaranteed if I can make Imps. If I do, I was probably going to take my Soviets.
See, you can take an anti-tank rifle. That's 1 less dog mine.
Veteran dog mine team.
Ooh, I like that.
How many points is that?
It's like 40 points. for 2 dudes.
Yeah, right then.
We're going to regret
If you
that.
take-
He's going to
if
do
you
really
take
well with
Germans-
veteran dog mines.
If you're taking
I
Germans,
was in favour of saying no dog mines.
He does need the crutch, though. Bless his little
Yeah.
cotton socks. He does need the crutch.
I'm offended, but also taking any sympathy I can get.
Okay.
So-
oh,
so
let's
how
be-
about this? If you take your Germans anywhere, anti-tank rifles got to be in there somewhere. If you take your Soviets, it's got to be a veteran dog mine team.
I'm going to go one up. Any dog mine teams he takes have to be veteran.
Oh,
Simply because they're already the fucking best unit in the game. They're already stupidly overpriced. You're going to pay a proper points for them. Go.
Okay, I'll take dog mines.
Veteran dog mines.
I feel
Doesn't matter
like
how veteran they are, those dogs still blow up easily.
Well, that's
feel
why
like
it's a bit that's a bit lenient. You got away with that.
I feel like veteran dog mines. The dogs need names. So
This is going to start a trend where next year we'll all be taking veteran dog mine teams because it turns out when you can't kill them easily and they actually pass all the checks, they become really good. Right. So this month's pledge. What we're thinking? Shall I go first?
Go on.
So I've had a stupidly busy month trying to sort out my last pledge, which was admittedly a little bit big. I've got a lot of shit to sort out this month, so as a responsible adult, I'm going to assign myself smart objectives, which are realistic. Therefore, I'm going to assign myself the very, very small task of just painting a tank, painting a vehicle. That's all. I'm going to paint a vehicle. That's all I'm going to do. Any more than that is a bonus.
The best looking vehicle you've ever painted.
It won't. It'll be a dip job. Hey, it's all about knowing what you can do and not being silly just because I can. I'm just doing a single vehicle. I'm not even telling you which vehicle because I don't want to say I'm going to do a tank and then end up doing a jeep. I'm just going to do a vehicle.
I
That's
think
it.
we should have
That's all I'm gonna
forfeits for the shittest pledge of the month.
No, because no. This is not about punishing people. This is about encouraging positive hobby growth and getting everyone to just keep going stupidly. Balls
first
to the
time I'm
wall.
hearing it.
I'm not so sure we should have our tagline, the Juggernauts Bolt Action Podcast, making you better 1 G per month.
Okay. Okay? Can I say I'll paint a vehicle, which will probably be a tank, but probably won't be. Okay, it'll probably be a tank, and I will decide on a list for imps.
shocker.
And then it's a bit more hobby. It's not necessarily painting, but I'm doing some hobby. I'm going to be number crunching and working something out. Sound good? Is that fair?
Yeah.
Do you accept that? Okay.
And you got to remember that not only that, he's got some commission to get through as well.
Also, I'm going to get, we do play more than bolt action. So I actually have some other projects I need to finish this month, which is the main reason why. Because one bellend has brought us stupidly shiny, expensive Games Workshop box set and then gave us half the models to prepare for. Because stupid Blackstone Fortress or whatever it is. So I got shit to do. Bolt action's still on the radar. I will paint a tank, but I'm bringing myself down for this month. Boom. That's my pledge.
My pledge is just going to be the pledge that I should have done for this month.
If you don't make this one, we're gonna have to extra punish you.
I think you all know that I'm the slowest painter here, so I think I should get a little bit more credit for actually having painted something. So no, what my pledge is, I will finish the Panzerfaust. They're basically done, but they need a bit of tidying up. I will finish those, and then I will do the 2 squads of infantry. I will complete those as well, and that will mean that I could probably put about 800 points on the table, fully painted.
That's pretty cool.
I'm going to paint 5 teams.
Very
that it?
specific. 5 teams.
5 teams.
That's
Are these single man snipers? Because that doesn't count.
No,
I mean, they kind of do.
so it leaves me with a choice there. So if other projects get in the way because I'm finishing them off, I can just do the 5 suicide aids. But otherwise, I've got 2 medium mortars I can do, 3 sniper teams I can do. You know what I mean? Just spread it about.
Yeah.
As I say, I think just trying to one-up each other and then trying to pledge to paint entire armies in a single month is probably a bad call. Dan just because he can.
Dan.
It's just because Dan can paint an entire army in a month and he's just trying to lord it over us. That's what he's doing.
I won't go too balls to the wall for you then.
I was going to say, haven't you already done this month's pledge last month?
Well, I'm not going to count the Fallschirmjäger infantry as being anything part of the pledge because that was just a little bonus for myself to get the painting well, and I did it. So yay me. So my pledge this month is going to be which is first? Is it Cambridge or is it Imps? It's Cambridge.
Cambridge, yeah.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make sure that I've got everything built for my Cambridge list. So I think I need to order a couple of vehicles, which I've done today. I need to build some more Marines and build a couple of the teams, like the Bazooka team and stuff like that. So they're all going to be built. And I'm also going to build my 1,000 point double platoon market garden paratrooper list as well.
Oh, look at this guy.
And then I'm going to play test. And I'm going to play test it in the garage and watch Toph's anus just bleed.
I'm actually going on I'm actually going on holiday for the next 6 months.
That's fine. I got loads of money. I'll follow you wherever you go.
Damn it! That's fine. I look forward to it. I look forward to whinging endlessly about it. Well, I should be working. I'll be at work. I should be working, and all I'll be doing is typing furious, angry notes to you on WhatsApp. And my boss will come round and she'll go, "What you doing?" I'll be like, "I'm putting freaking wrongs to right." My keyboard will be on fire.
It'll just be the word "cunt" copied and pasted a million times.
Right. So I think that's it, guys. This is going to be a very long episode. If anyone's still listening, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry that you had to put yourself through this. Hopefully you didn't listen in one go. Spread it out.
And just the last thing as well, if anyone's interested in the lists we actually made, if they want them to be put up on the Facebook group, just let us know and we'll get some pictures taken of the list we made.
True that. And as usual, if you have any comments, any concerns, feel free to message us on Facebook, write a comment, email me, juggernautswargaming@gmail.com. I will happily accept all of your spam. This has been a good one. Let us know what you think, because this is our first real army book review. So if we miss key points out, because I already know we missed out the frickin' Panzerwerfer, but it's fine, no one needs to know about that. We ain't got time for that.
Well, it's dead easy. It's the Nebelwerfer on tracks. There you go. Done.
Easy. Best unit in the game. GG.
Cool. That's an MMG.
It's an anti-Topher rifle.
Are we done? Can I go to bed now? Are we done? Good night, guys.